Hey, everybody, and happy Thursday. I wanted to take a real quick second as I introduce this wonderful gentleman to say something I always forget to say. As you're in here tonight, please don't forget to click that like button. For some reason, I'm terrible about doing that for myself. And my kid reminded me today that I need to say that. So there it is. My kids, the YouTubers that are professional at it, I certainly need some help from them. Anyways, like I said, my dear friend KB that I've been very fortunate to meet and get closer to over this last year is here tonight, and there's no need to delay any further. KB, what's going on, KB?
What's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well for a Thursday.
You just traveled. Where exactly did you fly to?
Orlando, and you would think it'd be nice and warm and a nice
I was about
break
to
from
ask.
this cold weather. There was 1 or 2 days it was actually warmer here in Kansas City than it was down there.
Wow.
And I wasn't ready. I think this was like the warmest thing I brought was like this light zippered hoodie. And
I remembered that I was going to ask that because I stepped outside maybe 20 minutes before we went live, and it is bitter cold tonight. It is windy.
Yeah.
It is freezing. And by the way, I'm not sure how many people know this. KB is here in Kansas City with me, and I've been fortunate enough to see KB in person a few times, and I can see him again in just a couple days. So I'm very excited for that.
So am I. I'm looking forward to it, man.
I love Justin says, is there background music playing? Yes. I'm here to set the mood. Come on, my friend. Yes, of course there's background music playing. We got all kinds of people here tonight. Stan Geezy is here. Hello. And Antoine. Dead Sea Life. That's a name I haven't seen in a few weeks. What's going on? D. Sibner. Hello. Terry and Brian and Sardis. What is up? John is here tonight. Hello. Brian, hello. Anyways, tonight we don't have a ton of announcements, but we are going to talk about one of the biggest names and faces in movies over the last history of cinema, and we're going to talk about Mr. Martin Scorsese in just a little while. And when we do, by all means, share your Scorsese hot takes, your opinions, your favorites, your disappointments. We're going to put KB on the spot and have him answer some of those questions too. But first, why don't you tell us what you do on your channel?
Yeah, sure. KB Love Movies. Basically, I couldn't come up with a better name. I'm like, I love movies.
Right.
So, hence the name. But really, I wanted to be a place for fellow movie lovers, not just collectors, not just YouTube content creators, but for anyone who loves movies. So a good example of that is the segment that has really taken off on my channel are my conversations. So I have interview-like conversations with people. Mostly it's been content creators and collectors, but on Christmas night, I had my kids. I mean, they grew up in my house. They gotta love movies. So it was interesting because they're now in their 20s to get their perspective on things and, see how they concur and then also how they differ, So that was great. And what I want to do is I have a segment at the end of every conversation where I ask the exact same 5 questions. So I call it the 5 takes. And I've created a shorter segment where I just have the 5 takes. So what I'm going to do for the month of February, because January is more than half over already, I'm going to have just segments of 5 takes. 5 takes February. And, that way it's the questions that any movie lover can answer. And, there are some people I know less than others. It'll give me an opportunity to have conversations with them just by answering the questions. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I publicly wanted to share a couple compliments and make it sound like I'm just here to kiss up, but I really wanted to say in a way that you can tell is very meaningful how much you have meant to a lot of people over the last year. And obviously the communities that you've touched in the last, say, probably about 6 months is when it's been hit the hardest.
Yeah.
It is quite obvious how personally that you have lodged yourself in some of these people's lives, and that is a very good thing, because allowing your individuality to shine through a lot of these channels is difficult sometimes, especially when there's a lot of people out there. But the biggest thing I wanted to point out is the solicitation from KB to have a whole bunch of people send in a short video of what was the exact prompt, because there was a couple different takes in the video that was made.
Movie related, what are you thankful for? And you know, that ranged from people being thankful for Black Friday sales to people being thankful for the community, the BlueTuber community that we built, to, you know, some people just happy for something that they've always wanted to come out on physical media, coming out on 4K. You know, we got stuff that's been on VHS that's popping up on 4K, or DVD going straight to 4K with no Blu-ray. So, you know, people are thankful for that. I'm really happy of the success of that video, because it wasn't something for me. It was, you know, it was like a group effort. And I think everyone who shared and participated in that really were honest with what they said and everything. So yeah, I really like doing that one.
It is a light in a dark time, when in a community of creators that for some reason have made their name like reacting with terrible takes on trailer reactions, or responding to the latest boutique label controversy as a, hey, let's go on and just really rip into this company. When you have somebody putting out that kind of positivity, it really does break through. And I think the success of that video shows that. And I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
Thank you for mentioning that. You know, you're absolutely right. The people that are, you know, reacting today to Scream 6 trailers, nothing wrong with that, but it's like that plus people complain about off-gassing. Did it affect your disc? Are you still going to be able to watch the movie?
Right.
You know, my whole thing is this, since I was a kid, this was not even an escape. This is like a part of me, you know. Arts altogether are a part of me. So if I'm given an opportunity for something, I got to see Empire Strikes Back on Super 8 at my uncle's house. I was happy for that. Yeah. So, you know, my favorite movies from the 80s coming out on 4K, I don't care if it's greasy as hell. I'm happy that I have that disc. Just don't mess up my disc and don't bend my steel books. It's all gravy, you know?
The bent steel books, I understand that completely. So not to duplicate the conversation too much, but and obviously you've been interviewed on your own, so we'll discuss just some light points for people that haven't broken onto the channel yet. Sure. What is the reason that you're into movies in the first place? Obviously you've been watching for a long time, but what is that first moment that made you go, damn, like movies are a part of me?
I could think of several moments. The first time that I remember going to the theater was a Swiss Family Robinson, Grizzly Adams kind of movie. Let's just call it Swiss Family Robinson. And it was great because it was a thing larger than life in front of me. And you're giving me snacks and you're giving me soda. I'm like single digits, and I'm just like, this is the greatest thing ever. I don't need to go to an amusement park. I have one right in front of me. Right. And it's for a limited time, but at the same time, I can't wait to experience that again. You know, I remember the days before VHS old. So it's like, once we were able to bring that home, I still remember the first two movies we rented. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Romancing the Stone. And now I have one on 4K and I have one on Blu-ray. And
before long, we'll get the other one on 4K.
Yeah, but when I watch them, I'm holding that 10-foot wired remote on my VHS. Eating, oh my gosh, this is how vivid that memory was. McDonald's just brought out chicken nuggets that week.
Wow.
So I had my first chicken McNuggets while watching Romancing the Stone. So those are deep, embedded core memories. You know what I mean?
That is truth. Yeah, that's a big deal. And with films like that, obviously, being that young, it's almost, I don't want to make it like grander than it is, but the fact that it's an adventure movie alone is enough to go, oh my God, like this is something special. It wasn't some, some of the kids animated films or something cheesy like that can not have as much of an emotional impact, but like, again, Indiana Jones, or even the newer generations watching something like Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, just get taken away to a different world and go, man, I can be there right now.
Yeah, and it just means something different for you as an adult, because you definitely have that big block of nostalgia, but of course you experience movies differently than you did in the past. So let 8, 10 years, 15 pass and watch that same movie again. You're in a different stage of life, so you experience it differently. So when the Indiana Jones 4Ks came out, I just took a Saturday and watched all of them together, because it was like, I want that feeling again.
Yeah.
I didn't have any chicken McNuggets, but it was just an experience.
Brian is asking, hey KB, do you still like the chicken nuggets?
No. If I go to McDonald's, it's for fries and nothing else. Maybe a Sprite, because apparently they're like liquid crack or something like that.
I'd heard recently, the rumor is that the reason the McDonald's sodas are better is because instead of the ABS plastic tubing, they have some sort of proprietary stainless steel tubing that they use. And it keeps it colder or allows more carbon dioxide, and something like that.
Crack. That's all sprinkle.
That's all it means, yeah. Stan Geezy shares, the first film I ever saw was Sleeping Beauty under the stars at an open air theater.
That's beautiful.
That sounds amazing.
That's a beautiful experience.
And other than those first couple times, is there something that, looking back on, that you are relishing the idea of a joined cinema experience? Something that the people that you were with, or maybe the crowd that you were a part of, it made that film that much more magical?
I have two that come to mind. So I went down to Austin a couple years ago when Harry Knowles wasn't in trouble with everybody else, and I attended one of his button-up-a-thons, and it was great. It was the year that The Hobbit came out in the high frame rate, so we saw it properly because they had the right projector, everything. But that was the last movie of the night. Earlier movies included Kingsman that we watched with Samuel L. Jackson. Rian Johnson showed up and everybody was asking him about doing What Became the Last Jedi. That was fun. Seth Rogen brought The Interview, and that's when it was still about to be banned from existence, so we thought we were going to get a unique experience. And it was just great because it was 24.5 hours straight movies.
Jeez.
Straight movies. And I can't think of a better experience than that. It's like not even overload, because somewhere during the night, you're gonna doze off during like a Esther Williams movie or something like that. But yeah, it was pretty good. And in October, I think on October 1st, I saw all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies together with this guy. It was great. I had a best experience.
I agree, and I think one of the things that made that so much fun was Cam showing up and having only ever seen Freddy versus Jason. To watch him react on the spot to the crazy things that he saw in that franchise was so much fun all day long.
Yeah, quite verbally, which we didn't care at that point. It was just part of the experience.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you're in something like that, most people there are either super fans or they've seen them at least passively, and they're like, hey, let's go have fun and do it all day. Cam went in there as a completely wet behind the ears baby, and oh my God, it was hilarious to see some of the reactions.
Yeah.
With
that in mind, since we saw the first one in 4K, when do you think we're going to get the physical version of that this year?
Honestly, I do see that coming probably around September. I don't see any others coming for a while at least. But
no, we're going to get at least the first one. That's the only one I upgraded over the years. I still have the DVD box set, which I still think is a gem. But when they put out the Blu-rays, I didn't like the Blu-ray set, so I just upgraded the first one, so I'll
Yep.
probably do the same thing again.
That makes sense. Speaking of, he just showed up and said hello. So what's going on, Cam?
What up, Cam?
That was beautiful timing, literally as we're
Perfect
talking
timing.
about it. And
Perfect.
yeah, Anthony was asking for sure. Yes, he had only ever seen Freddy versus Jason. So even in the theater, it was his first time ever seeing the very first Nightmare on Elm Street.
And that was great. Because I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. The only one I hadn't seen in the theater was Freddy versus Jason. I had seen all the other ones in the theater, either from opening weekend.
Wow.
Because that's how I used to see them.
Yeah.
And then I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, in a retro release.
Very nice.
Yeah, because the first time I saw it was on VHS, the same day I saw The Making of Thriller. Great double feature. That's something that needs to come out too, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Making a Thriller on Blu-ray.
Well, and now that, I don't know if you heard about this, I think this was like, actually probably right around when we went to the theater in October. Somewhere around then, Thriller got released digitally on 4K, like after a big restoration. And it looks incredible compared to the old versions.
I gotta get my hands on that.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole John Landis stock is one thing, but Thriller just by itself would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree there. Gosh, what was there was another thing I was about to bring up about that. Anyways, not to swing from something inherently very positive to something very negative, but the biggest movie news of the day, I think we would be odd to not bring it up. And of course, as I say that, I remember, I wanted to point out how interesting it was that both my live show on Tuesday and now today, two guests in a row brought up going to a screening and having Ryan Johnson show up and do interaction with the crowd and everything.
He
anyways,
seems like a cool guy.
he always looks it. All right, movie news of the day. For anybody that did not see, the headline was Alec Baldwin to be charged with involuntary manslaughter over Rust shooting. So for those that don't know, Alec Baldwin was the producer of a film that was being shot in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he was on set. He was also starring in the film. And there was something that he was supposed to be filming a scene with a gun that, of course, was supposed to be a prop gun that was only supposed to have blanks in it. Something happened, very reminiscent to The Crow. And apparently there was a live round somehow, and an individual that was on the crew was killed. And now they came out today in New Mexico and said that Alec Baldwin will be charged with involuntary manslaughter over the shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins, who was killed on a film set when he fired a prop gun. First off, this is interesting, obviously, because it has a lot of implications that come with it. The other part that is important, it's not just Alec Baldwin, he's just the bigger face on it. The other person involved, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the film's armorer, is also being charged. Lawyers for both are saying that they're fighting it in court, of course. But on first reaction, what do you think of the story overall?
When I first read it earlier, I had the question if he was being charged as the person who was the actor on set or as a producer, because you mentioned the armorer, but also I'm hearing that also the first AD who was in charge of the set that day is also being charged. Maybe not with the same charges, but they're involved as well. I don't know. This is such a strange and sensitive incident and topic, because you have to imagine the person's family wants some kind of justice because they really can't get an explanation. And I'm hearing it was a full, if it was a revolver, 6 rounds, 6 live rounds. So I think the only thing that will bring them any kind of rest is to find out the why. Why was this on the set? Why wasn't it a prop gun? And I heard someone saying earlier today, hopefully it changes the industry of, we're in a CGI world, and, things like sound effects and, CGI can be done to show like muzzle fire or, you know, a
Right.
gunshot of pretty much anything that you see in like Call of Duty or GTA can be done in a movie now. So why not do it and not have like live rounds on set? It's disturbing that we're still doing that in 2023.
Yeah, and that's my biggest question. Is obviously this is something that they're filming it to look realistic. So I understand that he is holding a gun, he is pointing it at wherever he was supposed to be pointing it, and he's pulling the trigger. Otherwise, it's not going to look like he's pulling the trigger like they want in the film. Completely understand that aspect. However, why in the world would you ever bring a live round anywhere close to a set like this? It's not something that even like if you are a hobby shooter, which more power to you, nothing wrong with that. But even if you're the prop manager and you were out in the New Mexican desert the day before shooting, you don't bring the live rounds to the set the day of something where they're filming it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see how that gets in within 100 feet of the set.
Yeah. And just to follow up, I mean, I mentioned seeing the Kingsman. One of the things that was interesting is we saw before all of the last minute special effects were added. So, I mean, if movies like that or John Wick can use CGI to simulate gunfire, there should be no reason for Rust or any of these other movies that are coming out now to have real or blanks or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it is depressing as hell that somebody lost their life. It is, and not to mention, I didn't even mention this, but I believe the director of the film was hit as well. He wasn't killed, but he was hit. And it's crazy how many people, when you think about it, how many people on the set had to be negligent for this to get to that point. It is usually something where the props manager verifies, another individual who's usually the armorer, they would verify as well. You would hope that the actor picking it up would understand what they're doing and be safety conscious to a point. But then again, like I said, they're filming something. It's got to look like they're doing it. So I get, if you are trusting the person before you, that it should be right. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things around that doesn't make any sense. And again, I think the scariest part about it is the implications of what could come from the entire suit. Because if somebody that didn't have anything to do with the actual live ammo being there is somehow lumped into this and they get a stain, any other future negligence could fall on people and use this as precedent. So it's important to get it right. It's important to give empathy and care to all the families involved. And that, sorry for a lot of people that just hate the guy, that also goes for Baldwin and his family too. Like, I don't think he went to the set that day planning to kill somebody.
No.
So
and I know a lot of people have problems with him, and his demeanor and so forth, but it was still an accident, and he's still a human being, just like if it happened to any of us, which you never know, something like that could happen to any actor on the set.
Right. Yeah, and the last thing to point out, what KB said at the beginning, the important part here also is who is being sued for Alec Baldwin. Is it the producer Alec Baldwin or the actor Alec Baldwin? Because one genuinely pulled the trigger or was holding the gun at least when it misfired, and the other one is just in charge of the set. Because if that's the case and that person gets charged, oh man, there's a lot of people in a whole lot of trouble on future sets if anything goes wrong.
Including him. It's going to make it harder for him to get financing for him to produce any type of movies or TV shows in the future, because he'll have that stain on his record.
Yeah.
The producer, Alec.
I like Dude McMahon's comment here. CGI never looks as good as mechanical effects, and I think most of us would agree. However, it's obviously 100% safer. But then he says, I saw an armorer who was interviewed today that pointed out millions of blanks have been used on sets for the last 100 years, and the number of times that there were accidents can be counted on one hand, which says a lot for this. And I completely agree.
So if anything, maybe a positive will come out of this with stronger safety protocols, because, whether you're for or against gun laws or whatever, you should be for safety, which I think is a very important thing.
And then Stan Geezy points out the armorer and the first AD both cleared the weapon before Alec Baldwin even touched it, which
That's so weird.
It's a lot to ingest and even comprehend how this could happen at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Again, a lot of pain and empathy for the families involved, because with those types of questions, obviously they're looking for those answers, and it's a situation that's going to be very difficult to unravel.
All the family. Yep.
Alrighty, let's do what we always do and go into some announcements, which there's not a whole lot this week.
No.
First up, February 14th, Ronin Flix is delivering the love and giving us a double feature with Jet Li of The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk 1 and 2. Jet Li stars as a carefree young martial arts expert who gets involved with a government official's daughter, of course, just as he discovers his family is part of a rebel resistance movement. While his fighting ability and charm made him a local champion, his epic battle for freedom would make him a legendary hero. Acclaimed choreographer Corey Yoon directs Lee at his jaw-dropping best, including an unbelievable sequence fought entirely atop the heads of stunned onlookers. On this one, I really wanted to point out that there are a lot of people complaining online because it appears that neither one of these have new restorations, and then on top of that, they are using what people usually refer to as dub titles. So they are using the dub and not doing very well to get any sort of new translations or anything. So we are, stuck with something that a lot of people would probably love with some good Jet Li stuff, and it's not as high quality as it could be. But a lot of the licensing from over there is not real easy to unravel. Martial arts films, not something that we hear you talk a lot about. Do you have a history with them at all?
A big one. I grew up in New York, and every Saturday there was this thing called Drive-In Movie, and a lot of Shaw Brothers movies. But then as I got older and you would still see the movies, they started to highlight different people, Sammo and Jet Li, of course. So this was 93 when Legend came out?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, this was 93.
Yeah. So by then that had transferred from watching on TV with commercials to VHS days and DVD in some cases. But yeah, it's kind of a shame that they're not remaking the translations. I think that's one of the things, anything mid-90s and back is almost needed, because some of those are so poorly done that they really need to go through and convert, whether it's Cantonese or Japanese or whatever the case may be, and just redo those translations. That's one thing I have to say with the Shawscope sets, they do a really good job at.
That's true. D. Sibner, I believe he's in New York, says this was the stuff you could only find at Kim's Video in New York City. Next up, we are... there was a Enjoy the Ride media sale at Vinegar Syndrome over the weekend. And then this was a fun tease last Friday, which we already know one of these now. Neon announced that Criterion is releasing Triangle of Sadness, Moon Age Daydream, the Bowie film, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, and then Petite Maman. I believe a couple of these are ones that I've heard you at least mention a little bit. Criterion is a big deal for us, and we've met in person at Criterion Cells multiple times now. Any of these, other than the one that we're going to talk about in a little bit, that you're looking forward to a whole lot?
Well, I know both you and Nathan both have that Celine Sciamma set. So I really loved Portrait of a Woman on Fire. So anything that she puts out, I'm interested in. So definitely that. And for some reason, I passed on the Bowie movie when it came out. I mean, I have a screener, I could look at it, no problem, but I didn't pick up the Blu-ray. So I'm interested to see if they're going to just remake the Blu-ray with more special features, or if they're actually going to bring that out in 4K, because from what I hear, the source material should support a 4K. So it'd be interesting to see how they decide to put that out. So definitely those.
Not to say like you're wrong or anything. I'm just sad. I don't have the Celine Sciamma set. I'm very
I thought
jealous
you
of Nathan.
did.
No, I don't have it.
Huh. Okay. Well, Nathan has it. We're sad we don't.
Yep.
By the time he told me about it, I remember I was in the Best Buy parking lot. Immediately I went to look it up, sold out. I was like,
Yep.
damn.
Yep. All right. Kino putting out The Hell with Heroes from 1968 with Rod Taylor. This is getting a new 2K master, and that's all we know about it yet. It is one that they don't put a release date on, and we'll probably see it in a handful of months to 2 years from now, somewhere in there. All these oldies coming from Kino. Are you picking many of them up? Are you happy with them?
I'm happy with some of the releases. Just looking back on the past year, besides what I call the Criterion steals, I think they did a really good job at bringing not only some popular titles but some lesser known ones, and doing really good restorations from what I've seen. Yeah, so whatever they put out, I'm interested to see, like, mostly the restoration, and for films like this that I never heard of, it'd be interesting to check them out, like on a sale or something, when you're looking for something to stack your cart.
Exactly, and that's the thing. After this comes out, you can probably get this 4 months after release for $8.95 in a Kino sale.
Exactly.
Next up, Kino is putting out Search for Beauty with a little-known actress named Ida Lupino. This is from 1934. This gets a new 2K scan of the 35mm fine-grain elements. And the fun thing, this gets a new audio commentary with Lee Gambin and Emma Westwood. And Lee Gambin's been on the channel, and man, he has said some really good things about this one, and it sounds really fun. Not to mention, 34, really good time for some of these around that time.
Yeah.
Brian left for a minute, and we started talking about Kino, so we had to come back.
Yeah. Like you said, that time is like really precious, and you were still going back and forth with the ratings board, and sometimes you had more risque things than you did after they put the code in place. So I'm always interested in those late 20s, early 30s, especially the beginning of the talkies, just to see what they decided to put words to.
What they got away with, yeah.
Yeah, that too. I was trying not to say that, but yes.
And then a lot of people excited about this one. Kino announced that they are giving us a UHD of Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death. Now this one has Powers Booth in it as well, and it's directed by Peter Hyams. What do you think about Jean-Claude Van Damme? Because I know a lot of people are very pro Van Damme, and I am not super in that corner.
I don't know if I ever told you, but I used to work in a video store when I was in college. So all those Van Damme movies were really popular, especially after Bloodsport hit. It was like Bloodsport hit, got popular on VHS, and then everybody wanted action movies with him. So I kind of see him in that cheesy but very talented martial art category.
Yep.
But like all his movies, I still go back to Bloodsport as one of his pure movies before he became like the rising action star.
He's definitely in that side for me as well, but I must admit I place him I think above all the other ones that I would place in that same camp. I mean, obviously, like, Steven Seagal holds nothing to Van Damme. There are so many people that would equate even Chuck Norris. I would take a Van Damme film over Chuck Norris pretty much any day of the week.
Yeah. Seagal holds a special place in my heart, because that was like those days of just going and see an action movie because you had nothing better to do with your life, where you could stay out of trouble. So a lot of Seagal movies, and then reciting them when they were on home video just because you were bored or drunk or something in between. It's just fun.
Exactly.
But cheesy fun.
I mean, this is not super important now because the voting's over, but I will highlight it and also thank KB publicly for being a part of the Creator Selection Committee. Shelf Shock Rewind, we are done voting. I have all of the ballots, and I am counting them. Nothing was stuffed, I promise. And I'm very, very curious to see people's reactions because some of these categories might be a little bit of a shocker. But just a reminder that not only were you here to vote, but there is actually a live award show coming. So make sure you're preparing for that. I even have a couple people that have told me they took the next day off already. And yeah. February 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be live here on this channel and on the Shelf Shock YouTube, and I'm probably going to do the Chasing Labels YouTube on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, pretty much everywhere. And we are going to have a really great time with this. There is so much that we are already looking into doing. Steven has been wonderful, but genuinely, the committee that we put together was so helpful and just so wonderful to get all these people on board to vote for just the most wild award show that we could possibly put together. So thank you again.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with that, and I think that some of the categories were totally unique, and it's turning into the Academy Awards meet the Super Bowls for physical media collectors. Can't wait to see how it turns out.
It is, because Ice Q just said, Ryan, I hope you're in a suit and tie, and let's just say I've got plans.
Tuxedo shirt.
Next one. This one's interesting. So on March 31st, Kino, their partner label Raro Video, is putting out the Belle Star story. And this is interesting because this is directed by Lena Wertmuller, and it's the only spaghetti western to be directed by a woman.
Wow.
She replaced Piero Cristofani, who used the name Nathan Weech, a few days into the shoot. Abused and dominated by men in her youth, Belle Star now outrides, outsmokes, outshoots, and outgambles them as she makes her way around the Old West, usually wearing male garb. But then, the very exciting part for me, this also has an audio commentary by Sam Deegan, who is one of the best film historians out there. I love pretty much everything she touches, and I cannot wait to see what she says about this one, especially with the whole feminine aspect of being the only female-directed spaghetti western. That's pretty incredible.
Wow. I'm looking at this, and nothing in this shouts like Swept Away or Seduction of Mimi.
Yeah, it's an odd cover.
It's not her typical forte into film genre, so that's interesting.
Cannot wait
to see that. I didn't know she made a western.
That is true. All right, this one coming on March 14th from RLJE and Shudder is The Apology from 2022. This has Skylar White from Breaking Bad starring in it, and it looks decent. I've not seen this one. Are you staying up to date on Shudder films? I know you go to the theaters a lot.
Yeah, I'm not too up to date with Shudder, unless it's like something big and popular, like Art the Clown, whatever.
I was shocked when this popped up to see Janine Garofalo's name on the side as well.
Really?
That's a name that I've not seen in a long time.
Yeah.
This one says, 20 years after the disappearance of her daughter, recovering alcoholic Darlene Hagen is preparing to host her family's Christmas celebration again with the help of her friend and neighbor Gretchen. Late Christmas Eve, Darlene's estranged ex-brother-in-law, Jack, arrives unannounced, bearing nostalgic gifts and a heavy secret. Soon, Darlene finds herself caught between reason and ruthless instinct. Trapped together by a dangerous storm, a battle of wits escalates to a violent game of revenge. It's good copy.
Psych thriller. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of isolation winter horror over the last few years, I feel like. It's kind of cheap to film, so that makes sense.
Single room.
Yep. This might be interesting for a lot of people, and one I don't think I've heard you talk about erotic thrillers at all. MVD has launched a new little subline that they're putting out called Skin Max. And these are all DVD double features, not Blu-ray, of mostly 90s softcore erotic thrillers. The first 3 are available now, with the next 2 coming in February. MVD came out publicly and said, by the way, these are old masters, and they're being reported as comparable to a high-quality VHS. Doesn't sound great, but on the other hand, these would probably be lost to full-on obscurity if these were not released on this DVD. All of the features on this are pretty standard, 133:1 or 137:1. Each DVD is going to have 2 movies on one DVD, and there are no bonus materials or subtitles anywhere other than a trailer for each film. One of these, Midnight Confessions, which is in this first double feature, is the only one that appears to be cut so far. Yeah. So, what do you think of erotic thrillers?
Not usually a fan. I think after the age of 14, I probably stopped watching, Skinamax and all that stuff late at night. But MVD, kind of interesting choices. I mean, you have this and you have the US thing of Radiance now. So interesting pickups from that company lately, which, by the way, I'm still waiting for my gambling boss to show up.
Oh, are they somewhere? Yes. Well, I guess I didn't get it from MVD, but I did I tend to do pickup videos with one of my kids for my Patreon, and these were just in the latest delivery. So, I make my kids look at the cover of a film and then react to what they think the film is about. And once again, we had an existential discussion on what heaven is with my youngest. The first one I think was about hell, and so now I got to hear why he thought heaven was up in the clouds. So, yeah, interesting. I love having those little conversations on camera. Like I was saying, these are 5 double features. We got Midnight Confessions with Private Obsession. That's out now. And then Test Tube Teens from the year 2000 and Rebecca's Secret, also available now. And then Illicit Dreams and Indecent Behavior 4, available now. And then coming in February, Sexual Impulse, Sexual Roulette, and then Lap Dancer and Bare Exposure. I gotta admit, I love erotic thrillers. They're like cheesy soap operas for me. I don't know why. They're just fantastic. The only thing that's getting me though, I don't want VHS quality. That's the biggest thing.
Right. They know there's a certain audience for these. That's why I don't want to say not too much effort's being put into it, but it's like, hey, it's not scrambled.
Right.
So you can enjoy it this way.
Stan says, just watch that episode with Spencer. He's hilarious. My kid is funny as heck. Anyways, next up, that's already gone. Let's see. March 14th, Kino's partner label Cohen Media Group is putting out 1998's Secret Defense, another Jacques Rivette film, which, oh my gosh, Kino and now their partner labels going all in on a whole bunch of French cinema in February and March. This is just absolutely adding on to an onslaught of things that they're putting out. I mean, the Truffaut films that we're getting, now we're getting this. I think we said there's another one from Jacques Rivette coming around the same time. Cohen Media, have you gotten into anything from them yet?
I did a few reviews of some earlier stuff when I was doing stuff for Kino and MVD and all that, but just I think the last thing I got, and I don't even know if it was Cohen, was the story of Z100, and that was interesting because it's a radio station that I grew up on listening to in New York City, but they had a kind of worst to first story to them, so I think that was the last thing I got from them.
Interesting. I don't have a ton of Cohen, but the stuff that they do, it's very high quality, and I feel like they're kind of slept on as a little partner label of Kino, and obviously they don't get a ton of press or anything like that. So yeah, always try to shine a light on them. I've got, I think they put out The Old Dark House, and it was done really well by them. Just giving a little shout out. Next up, I put up a video with Jonathan Hertzberg from Fun and City Editions. Give it a watch, although there's already outdated information in it. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. This one is exciting because I think this channel, and specifically my Patreon, willed this into existence. So coming on March 21st, Paramount, as part of their Paramount Presents line, we are finally getting Wes Craven's Red Eye in high definition. And not only is it on Blu-ray, we're getting a 4K. And the reason I say this channel and our Patreon willed it, we watched this as part of our monthly watch-along, like, I want to say November. And when we watched it, we said, watch, now that we're watching this, we're going to get a Blu-ray within the next 6 months. And here we freaking are. Not even 4 months after, it will be up, and I cannot wait to get this. What do you think of Red Eye?
It's one of those movies that it's like, when it was like the hot thing, I used to watch it all the time, but I probably have not watched it in a good 10, 15 years. But I'm excited to see it again, because this shows how versatile Wes Craven was. A lot of people just think of him with horror movies. I mean, he made some great thrillers, a couple of dramas that no one talks about. So I'm anxious to see this again. And this is what I was talking about before, like going from VHS or DVD right to Blu-ray and 4K. So it's great.
It is, and I gotta be honest, I think it holds up a lot better than I expected. Every month we do a poll, and speaking of, if you are interested in the Patreon, I got a poll up right now. We're doing our next watch along on Sunday. So I do a poll every month, and I put this one up as like a cheesy, people will look at this and probably not vote on it and go for something else. I always throw in one or two of those, except for this month. I went kind of very interesting this month, but this one was like, LOL, people are going to look at it and go, it's Craven, but not horror, so let's watch something else. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen Red Eye in forever. And it played like gangbusters. Everybody seemed to like it that night. It was a lot of fun. And I got to be honest, that's been one of the best parts of the last 6 months for me, is these watch-alongs. We did The Toxic Avenger. We watched that with all of our patrons. Yeah, we watched this. We watched the Severin film, Night of the Animals, or Day of the Animals, whatever it's called. And that, amazing. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch these with a group of people. Period.
This is a good movie, so I'm not surprised that it holds up. I mean, the reason I used to watch it over and over again, because it has high replay value. At least I think so.
Well, and it's held up by Rachel McAdams and Cillian Murphy. I mean, the two leads that are incredible.
Yep. I can't wait for that release.
All right. The interesting ones, Criterion. So, pretty much everybody that comes on here, they always get at least one to talk about their feeling on reissues. And this month, you're lucky enough to get two. We get two releases from Criterion that people are like, oh, okay. The Fisher King from Terry Gilliam is coming on 4K. Nothing new on it except for a 4K disc, and it's got a new 4K digital restoration. That is coming on April 11th. And they are also putting out Bergman's The Seventh Seal on April 18th on 4K. So, first off, just Criterion specifically, how do you feel about the UHDs coming out now?
I love when they bring out something new on UHD. So, for example, just on last year or two, Shaft, never before in the collection. Great.
And that release had a bonus film too.
Yeah, which, made it a nice little addition too. But like things like Menace to Society and Raging Bull, things that wasn't existing in the collection. But when you get into things like Night of the Living Dead or Seventh Seal now and Fisher King, no way to differentiate between that and the Blu-ray.
Yep.
Same cover, nothing commissioned new. And no additional new features, no new commentary. Hey, I'm happy for the restoration and pulling it from camera negative and all that. But honestly, I'd rather get a Blu-ray with like bare bones special features that's new to the collection. Like, for example, last year, and I know we share the love for this, but arsenic and old lace. I'd rather have that than looking at buying 7 Seal again. I'm not going to upgrade mine. If it's something that I never got before, like I'm looking forward to getting the 3 Color trilogy in 4K because I never bought that box set. I had the DVD, and then when it went to Blue, I didn't buy it. So now I don't have the DVD anymore. I'm looking forward to getting a 4K. But, you know, other things that have already existed, and I feel really bad for the people who bought it like in November and it's still sitting there unopened, or maybe they opened it and haven't watched it yet. It's almost like it's insulting, because it's like you're making me pay more for something that I'm basically double dipping for. Give me something new, even if it's just artwork, you know, give me a tickle or something.
And 2 points on that. So first off, the one thing that you just said, I really wish that first off, there are like 1,000 people out there that would jump at the chance to do a new commentary for the 7th Seal right now. Literally, probably at least 1,000 people. Get any of them. I guarantee you more than 80% of them would do it for free to be on a Criterion release. Got some people would pay you to allow them to do a commentary for it.
Even people that will gladly be commissioned to redo artwork. Put the chess game. Do something with the chess game on that cover. Same thing with Fisher King. You know, have something that incorporates Under the Bridge and the 2 main characters and something. I mean, the artwork for the Blu-ray
take a still from the movie
beautiful.
even.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but you know, give us something new, something different, something that differentiates from the Blu-ray.
So the other thing that I really wanted to point out, I don't like the fact that Criterion feels like they are using this as genuine filler. They are usually they'll have a release every Tuesday of a month, and in April, which historically I will give them a little bit of credit, April is usually a filler month, but this is a little overboard. So now in April, they're only putting out 2 films basically. These 2. They've got fairly recent releases, and most people that are big fans of Criterion or big fans of the films already have them on Blu-ray. And again, fine, happy for the people that are getting it on 4K that never got on Blu-ray. That's great. And honestly, do that. Even if people bought it in November, they won't feel as bad as long as you have a full month worth of releases. And this is a little side edition.
Yeah, there's not even anything on the 4th. So, you know, I think... what is it? It's starting from the 11th, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's nothing coming out on the 4th. So whereas we're used to having like something nearly every week, we're not even starting off the month with the release. You're not really getting anything new until the end of the month.
Yeah.
On the 25th.
So that's Spaghetti brings up a point. Yeah, you're right. Spaghetti brings up a point that I was going to point out, is that they did have staff cuts last year, and that could be playing a part of it, but they've also been doing it for months. Usually it's only been one. This month just feels a little more egregious to me.
Exactly.
Let's see. I suspect Criterion is regretting not jumping on 4K early on, and they are scrambling to catch up, says Dude McMahon. Chester says the new extras would always be a big selling point for me, so he agrees with us.
Yep.
John says it's similar to Shout Factory. I will say about Shout Factory, the only good thing there that we just pointed out about Criterion, at least Shout Factory has different art. You can tell the two different releases.
Sometimes, not all the time. I mean, I would be happy if they did Killer Clowns when they bring it to 4K. Keep that same artwork. I like that one. But
that was Arrow though, not
my bad.
Not Shout.
Arrow.
So
yes.
If they could,
they do the same thing too, with similar artwork.
Shoot, they put out the exact same box sets, limited edition box and everything. They did it for RoboCop. They've done it for a handful of them. Yeah. Wave even says, I quit buying Blu-ray from Criterion many years ago. Upgrades are coming. Buyer beware. Only buy 4K now. I think they should announce what's coming a year ahead so people don't get upset. Well, nowadays you can't really do that with production issues and I mean. With some of these companies, they are kind of flying by the seat of their pants, from what I've heard behind the scenes. Like There's only a few that are really ahead of the game, and for most of those, it's because like Vinegar Syndrome is one of those historically they have a lot mapped out because they do their own distribution, so they have to. But even then, when delays come up, they have other things that they can move around in the schedule because they know that they're coming up. It's very difficult to do. Very difficult.
And licensing would be a great issue to think of, having that prepared a year ahead of time. I'm grateful for 3 months. I mean, not to sound like I'm shilling for them or anything, but 3 months is a lot as far as getting production. In this case, having similar artwork, but when you have a new thing coming out to have artwork ready to show and everything, it's a lot.
Yeah, and they're from some of that I've heard, like I don't think it's a bad thing, so maybe I shouldn't put a name to it. There is a label in the UK that I have heard that they will even get some of the materials that are going to be on the disc literally like a week before it's being authored for a release date that's 30 days later.
I can believe that.
That is an insane turnaround for releasing something with 2,000 copies. That is crazy.
Yeah, especially if you're not putting out something mass. Yeah, I could believe that.
D. Sibner says, who do you think is the worst with the reissues? Criterion, Arrow, or Scream Factory? My opinion, Shout Factory, hands down. It's not even close.
Yeah.
You got anything different there? Oh, you agree?
No,
okay.
Totally concur.
Next from Criterion, this is a big deal, I will say, for an April release. This is a pretty fantastic release. April 25th, we are getting Small Axe, 5 films by Steve McQueen. This is essentially a full-blown box set, and it will be priced like one, so be prepared for that. This gets all of the films that came out either in 2020 or around 2020. I don't remember the exact years, but a couple of these are supposed to be incredible. I've not seen any of these yet. Have you checked out any of these?
Just what they had on the website, and it was kind of interesting because it's kind of like the diaspora of Black life in the UK, and the clip that they had was some West Indian guys, some Caribbean guys dealing with the cops, and I'm like, that could be my family if my parents decided to go to London instead of going to New York. I could have been one of those people standing there because my parents are from the Caribbean as well.
Yeah. Not to be the white guy that doesn't have a whole lot of black people on his channel. Did you ever see His House? I believe it was a Netflix film.
No.
It was about a family that came over from, it might have been Nigeria, I think. Mm-hmm. And they were going to the UK. And they essentially, because of the laws and some of the things put in place, they had to stay in this very specific government housing. And you learn through their first couple days in this house that they had a tragedy that happened as they traveled over, and one of their children died in the boat as they were coming over to the UK. And it is essentially a haunted house thriller is flipping that narrative onto a Rachel Diaspora story, basically. Yeah. And it's really well done, I think.
Huh. I am adding it to my list. I'm going to start this new segment on my channel called So I Watch That Thing, where people recommend movies like you just did. I watch it, and then we just hop in on live stream and just do a side-by-side review of it. So
nice.
I'll be giving you the shout.
I can't wait to hear. Spaghetti says each of these are about an hour in length, and it is reminiscent of the Decalogue set. That makes sense.
Oh, okay. Nice.
What else do we have here? Next up from Criterion is a 4K of Triangle of Sadness. This is the 2022 film that I just mentioned that Neon announced that Criterion was going to be putting out. Now, there are a handful of feelings on this one. So obviously, there's a lot of people that are, first of all, just seeing this movie right now for the first time because it's being touted for possible Oscar buzz for certain aspects of it. So it's going back into theaters for a little while. This got a lot of attention from Sean Baker and a couple more indie filmmakers touting it as like the best thing that they've seen in years. So it had a big push near the end of 2022.
Yeah.
But a lot of people seem to be upset that it's a brand new film coming to Criterion, which I don't necessarily agree with. I do think that it makes sense to put out films like this because they can be wide and impactful films that Criterion kind of built the reputation on that, on big, impactful, two-culture movies. And this potentially is one of those. The thing that I don't get, you're putting this out on 4K, and you don't do anything with HDR in a very colorful movie.
Yeah.
How are we leaving that out?
I understand if it's a director's choice not to want to use HDR. Like, I'm finding out little by little that there are directors that could be like Tarantino and don't like 4K as a format, or others who, working with their people decide that this doesn't need HDR.
Right.
And it's like, but it's there to use. Or, if you have a film that's in Dolby Vision, you're like halfway there. So I don't see the problem with using it, but when they don't, I mean, that's an individual choice. As far as putting this title out, they seem to do that like once or twice a year. So like last year was The Worst Person in the World, that they went right from, film festivals and theaters to putting it out. I remember watching it, and my cousin in New York was at a small film house, and she went to see it, and I'm like, oh, I have it right here. So it's nice to see them doing that. And same thing will happen with Triangle. We'll probably have it in hand when it's, just leaving the movie theater kind of thing. So I welcome it. I welcome any type of film that they add to the collection as a possibility. So,
well, and to make this relevant to tonight's discussion, I don't recall a single person complaining when The Irishman got announced. And it was a Scorsese film, and that's probably why. But it doesn't make sense to me that we would be, I don't know, standoffish about it. But I've also noticed this year on, I hate using this phrase, but on film Twitter, there's this big outpouring of people that are very anti-modern films, just as 100%, I will not watch anything after like 2000, which they call that a modern film. And I
that's
can't
as bad as
possibly
people that don't
comprehend
want to watch black and white film.
Yes, or anything international because they have to read subtitles, or anybody that won't watch anything before 1980. I mean, there's so much.
Won't watch a silent film. It's so stupid. You're basically compartmentalizing different types of art and saying, "Ew, I don't touch that." Just stop. You sound like artsy fartsy, and you're trying to be just the opposite. Just stop.
Right, I agree there. Sibner says, I just feel like the effort could be given to something that normally wouldn't get a standard studio release, which this will. I've got different feelings on that. I'm not going to say like I completely disagree with you, because I understand that. I would hope that this isn't taking away from something independent. That well, this is still very much an indie movie as well. It's not even really a mainstream film. I would say most mainstream audiences have never heard of Triangle of Sadness.
Exactly.
But what I would say is, even though this likely would have gotten a release from Neon just on a regular Blu-ray or something, Criterion is kind of not who they used to be anymore. They're just a boutique label that puts out films, and if they can afford something that they think will make them money, that's what they're going to put out. They just tend to be a little more highbrow films compared to something like Severin or Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah. I really think their personality has changed in the last 18 to 24 months. I mean, if you told me 2 years ago that Criterion was going to put out 3 Denzel Washington films in 1 year, I wouldn't believe you. And that's what we had last year. So I think they're trying to compete with the Arrows and the Vinegar Syndromes and all that. But, they're still trying to hold on to that identity. They're not going to put out like something that's a studio darling. You're not going to get a Top Gun Maverick or anything like that. But at the same time, they're trying to compete. Boutique might be standoffish, but they still need to make money.
Right. Spaghetti says, I think the time of Criterion being the benchmark has passed, and now physical media has a shared benchmark. I'd agree.
I could see that, because the thing that we used to like, I know for me, the thing that was so attractive about early Criterion was half the film and then half the special features, because that film school in a box mentality was because you got all those extras and you learned so much more about the films, and you got interviews from TV shows and all that stuff. That stuff is going away, and like I mentioned before, we're getting more and more examples of more bare bone releases. Like this one doesn't have that much for a fairly recent film. It doesn't have a lot on it.
No, we got a new interview with Östlund and the filmmaker. Okay, so it's another filmmaker. Östlund and the filmmaker and actor Johan Jonansson. I don't know how to say that last name. 2 new programs, one about the film's special effects and one about a challenging day on set, and then a trailer. Like Kino Lorber puts a commentary on basically everything and a slipcover. But nowadays, you can have any movie from 1934 without a big star in it. We'll get a commentary even. And I don't know. Like, Criterion used to be the bar, like Spaghetti said, and now, I mean, there are countless Vinegar Syndrome releases or Severin releases, or honestly, even some Kino releases that outshine a lot of the Criterion releases.
Yeah, Some Like It Hot is a great example that 4K, besides the formatting of it, it really put the Criterion to shame. So
yeah. And that's not to say Criterion still doesn't shine. Usually around 5 or 8 times a year, they put out something that is full featured and incredible. Stan points out the Arsenic and Old Lace. That release is incredible. Genuinely an incredible release. You pointed out the Denzel films. All 3 of those are masterpieces in my mind. I think that they are absolutely worthy, even of the old Criterion name. It's just different than what they would have done.
For sure.
Next, from Criterion to something called Kill Her Goats.
What is that? I gotta look close at what this is.
So this is amazing. Coming on March 1st, we get a 4K steelbook of a film called Kill Her Goats. And the only reason I shared this is because it's very limited. It's 4K, and I've never seen one of the aspects of this ever happen, and that is this film will not even be out when they ship the pre-orders for this. This will ship a week before the release date of the film. So the film, Kill Her Goats, is a 2023 film, and it says Audra's graduation gift is her dream house, but it soon becomes a living nightmare when some uninvited guests come to her homecoming party who aren't very subtle about the fact that they don't approve the home's new owners. So this villain that you see on the front and back of the steelbook is played by none other than Kane Hodder. And this release looks really interesting. We got a nice physical media release of this. We got a full-on steelbook that's limited to 4,000 copies. They've got some 8 numbered 4x5 lobby cards, and then there is a large vinyl goat face hologram sticker here. It actually looks pretty interesting. And then on top of that, one of the big things that they're touting as a thing that they're bragging about, there's no CGI and it's all practical effects, which if you watch the trailer, some of it is kind of impressive. And for those of you that like your highbrow art house films to be very lowbrow and full of boobs, this looks amazing for that. So it looks pretty interesting.
I want to see the same care and detail given to Cocaine Bear when it comes out on physical media.
The poster art that they use for that, imagine that on a steelbook. It would look yes.
Yeah, please.
Oh my gosh. So by the way, if you are Yes, all the white. Oh my gosh, yes. If you are interested in pre-ordering this and you go to the website, don't move your mouse or anything for a moment, and a little pop-up will show up. And if you put in even like a throwaway email, you'll get 10% off. And after shipping, it's like $31 for a 4K steelbook of a 2023 film. That's pretty decent to get a full package of something like this.
Oh wow. Yeah. Even if the story is,
there will be a lot to keep your attention.
I'm sure. Wow.
MVD, as part of the MVD Marquee Collection, has announced Redline from 2007. And this is a movie I don't think I had even heard of before this announcement. I've definitely never seen this. This is a car racing film, and yeah.
I've heard of this. I haven't seen it, though. I remember like a trailer for it on some Blu-ray or something like that. That's so weird.
It looks like it came out to capitalize on the Fast and the Furious films.
Yeah.
Probably just a few years too late, it looks like. I saw this cover and I went, is that Tiffany Amber Thiessen on top? And it doesn't look like her at all. Yeah. I need to check this out, at least the trailer, because I'd never seen this. Next up, oh my gosh, we have kind of a lot of news that came out of one single article from High Def Digest, all about OCN Distribution, the distribution company for Vinegar Syndrome, and I can't wait to hear what you think of some of this stuff. So first off, they had announced on the 1st of January that Umbrella Entertainment from Australia is now a partner label. And the big thing that we got about Umbrella is that they will be putting out at least 6 films in 2023, which is good to hear. Hopefully they bring a lot of their bigger marquee titles, because Umbrella has quietly been really good over the last year and a half or so. And
yep.
I believe like 99% of their releases have been region free, so a lot of people have them already. But for those that don't venture onto the boutique sites or don't deal with any sort of imports, this is actually really cool just to get some of those a chance to come over here. Next up, they announced that they're adding 2 more partner labels because they didn't have enough before. And I believe this will take the total up to 23 or 24, somewhere around there, which is just a baffling number. But the 2 labels we're getting are XYZ Films and The Film Desk. And both of them have, in the comment sections on social media, already started to reveal a couple titles they're putting out. So if you're interested, go find their accounts, go check those out. I did not go and find those because that was after this got posted. But it's interesting. We got a couple more coming. Then they came out and said AGFA and Canadian International Pictures are both releasing their first 4K titles this year.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. And then the big thing is, quietly at the end of this article, they came out and completely dismissed what Jonathan said in his interview with me just about 9 days ago now, that Fun City will absolutely be leaving OCN distribution to be exclusively distributed by MVD Entertainment after a release put out by Fun City in March, which, according to what Jonathan said in the interview, is likely going to be Primetime Panic Volume 2. So, that is a lot. Any immediate reactions from you?
MPD strikes again. That's the first thing I thought of. But the Umbrella thing is probably the one that sticks out for me, because it would be nice to see how their distribution changes, because I know I've waited a little while for certain titles, so I just want to see how that will change. But that's a lot of partners. That's all I keep saying. And the whole thing is, they're blowing up. I mean, they're still small in number compared to other boutique labels, but they're starting to blow up, and you just hope that they don't get too big too fast, because they might not be able to handle it, and the people that will suffer would be us, the consumer. And I don't want to see that happen.
I would agree there. So a couple things in response. The Fun City thing, a lot of people are probably distraught is a good way to say the word. There are a lot of people that have been very, very attached to Fun City over the last year. They've put out a lot of titles that are fairly mainstream. However, they are very personal films. And if you are interested in the film, or you have something that you can relate to in some of the films that Fun City point out, excuse me, if you have something relating to some of the films that Fun City have put out, they can be films that you very much get attached to. And if that happens from one company multiple times, you start to feel this odd affinity for the company and start to worry if something changes. Now, I will say, I think that this is a very good thing for literally everyone involved, for a handful of reasons. For the consumer, MVD has a much wider distribution. They sell things at Walmart, at Best Buy, on pretty much every website that you can think of. Beyond that, Orbit and Diabolic and Grindhouse, they all have access to MVD. They get all kinds of stuff from MVD already. Now, that being said, MVD also has good sales prices. So there's lots of good things to find in there. Fun City is not going away. They're just going through somebody else.
Yeah.
For the Fun City side of it, they will likely stand to make more money if they go with MVD for multiple reasons. They're probably going to sell a little more. They are probably going to make more per sale. And then on top of all that, it is very easy on the first of every month to get lost in a sea of announcements coming out of OCN when there's 22 partner labels and Vinegar Syndrome. So in a regular month, if there are 12 partner label releases plus 4 Vinegar Syndrome titles, a Fun City edition release is not going to get headlines grabbed on Twitter or Facebook and light everything up when there's 15 other titles that just got announced at the exact same moment. It may happen in small circles, but not like they did for Party Girl. For OCN, I think that this is a good thing because it shows that they can take a smaller label and grow them to a point where they can release Fun City to the wild and perhaps bring some others under their wing, which will eventually get more art to us, the consumers. Mm-hmm. Any other feelings on why it's a good or bad thing on that?
No, I totally agree with what you were saying there. It's just going to be interesting to see it because, like you were saying, I think that's part of the reason, just to bring it up again, why Radiant decided to bring their US side to MVD for the same reason. It's like, we could do it ourselves, like we've been doing the UK stuff, but we want to bring it to a company that we're going to have good distribution with. It's not going to get lost in the sauce, and people don't have to go to an exclusive website to see it. Like, I think if you look right now, a couple of the import companies have a couple copies of Big Time Gambling Boss left, but most sites, including Amazon was going to charge me like $36, and I had to wait until the end of the month. I was like, but Prime, and they're like, no, not for this.
Not anymore.
So, but MVD was like, yeah, we got it. So it was nice to see that, and I think that they're going to get the same type of love and the same type of service and exposure.
And honestly, that's probably where most of this started, is when Fun City went with Radiance in the UK, and Radiance said, well, we're taking Radiance to the US as well, and we're going through MVD. Fun City went, oh, well, hold on. If we already got a partnership there, what if I just take the partnership and mosey on over, and maybe, I don't know what their deal was, but maybe they signed a better contract with MVD than what they had with Vinegar Syndrome. A lot of people forget, Fun City was the second partner label with Vinegar Syndrome. A lot has changed since, God, when was that? 2020, I think, or maybe late 2019 that they announced their first partner label, which was AGFA. So, a lot has changed since they signed that first contract. I'm very curious to see, what was going on behind the scenes, and we'll never know, obviously, but there's a lot back there.
Do you know what the first 4K titles will be for AGFA?
I don't, but with the way that they announced, and I'm not sure if you had heard this, but AGFA announced on the They Live by Film podcast and a couple other places on social media that when they started 2020, near the end of 2022, they were going to start re-releasing all of the titles that they put out before they became a Vinegar Syndrome partner label. So that way they could come back and print. Because like Bat Pussy just got re-released, and that had been very out of print and hard to find. So I would imagine if they're going to be re-releasing some of those and they have decent scans, it would make sense to put out some UHDs to give people an actual reason to upgrade if they had that original release.
Right.
So,
or if they never got to it before it sold out.
Exactly.
Now it's another opportunity. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing that who knows on that front. Canadian International Pictures, if you go to this article, they had some teases for what they're putting out, and it sounds like their first 4K could be something in the genre side of things, like thriller-esque maybe. And there's a lot of Canadian horror / thriller that have never had a US release. I would be thrilled to see a 4K release of Pin. That would be amazing. Pin is so good. So we shall see. There's a lot that could come from this, and I don't know. There's a lot of question marks, but either way, this gave us a lot of new information and a lot of reasons to pay attention, which we already had 22 different reasons, and now we have 24. So
it's crazy.
It really is. We are almost done with announcements. This one's interesting, although it's VCI. Coming on April 11th, VCI is putting out The Green Hornet from 1940. And for those that don't know, this is the original serial series with 13 episodes. They are putting this out on 2 discs, and it's going to have 2 of the radio episodes of The Green Hornet and an audio piece by Clifford Weimer that is called I Am the Green Hornet, and some liner notes. And it's getting a restoration and all that. But again, it's VCI. I don't know. Have you dove into VCI at all yet?
Mm-mm.
It's rough. Not great overall.
Yeah, I've heard kind of like that kind of thing with some of their titles, so I never took the dip.
VCI is known for 2 things. A lot of their stuff have been on burn discs, and then the ones that have been on press discs, a lot of them still have just god-awful transfers.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah. This one, for some reason, a lot of people are into. I didn't like this movie.
I was just about to say it was just a period where those type of movies were coming out, and then by the time this came out, I was like, another one.
Yep. I was a little apocalypsed out at the moment.
Yeah. Anything that makes me say, well, let's watch Armageddon again, I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Let's watch Armageddon to see something high quality. Exactly. March 14th, we are getting The Core from 2003 on 4K from Paramount themselves. There's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, it's The Core. It is an Aaron Eckhart and Hilary Swank headlined film in 2003. It's Paramount, which are very hit or miss on the 4K side of things, which is not impressive. There's just a lot there. Again, I don't love this film. It does have a lot of the people that love the cheesy action epics. They seem to really like this one. Just wasn't for me. Moving on. This one intrigues me, even though the trailer looks very weird. For anybody that is not, please go look up the trailer for this after the show is over. February 21st, Lionsgate is releasing The Old Way from 2022, which has Nicolas Cage starring in his first Western ever, playing a character called Colton Briggs, a cold-blooded gunslinger turned respectable family man. When an outlaw and his gang put Colton and his family in peril, Colton is forced to take up arms with an unlikely partner, his 12-year-old daughter. In this action-filled film that builds toward its fateful showdown with pulse-pounding suspense. The trailer is one of the most odd tonal pieces that I've ever watched. It looks like it flip-flops back in 6 different genres.
Well, we're paying for getting Pig. That's all I think. It's like we got a good one, so now we got to get like 6 to 8 bad ones.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Next up, this is interesting too. Blondie, the complete 1957 TV series, is coming on Blu-ray from Classic Flicks. They did mention, because a lot of people, when they see this get announced, they go to some of the other TV films, and there's another series. They said that they don't have the rights or the ability to put out any of the others, just this. So this is not an indication of more to come. But this is getting a new transfer from the original 35mm Elements with all 26 episodes in a 2-disc set, and it looks like it's going to be very well respected. Classic Flicks have been killing it. You seem like you'd like Classic Flicks. You have anything from them yet?
I think I got one title. I just can't remember which one it is. I'm just looking at the cover, and it's like, oh, look at Dagwood.
It's very nostalgic, yeah.
Yeah. The comic strips, everything.
Classic Flicks have mostly been for forgot a word there. Classic Flicks have mostly been known for the Little Rascals restorations they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year we got that release of I, the Jury, that had it had a 3D disc and a 4K disc and a regular Blu-ray. So it was the best of every world possible, and it looked great. So yeah, they absolutely killed it. Next up, which I think we only have like 2 left, Discotek is putting out the live-action film called Another from 2012. You can get this now. It's going to be a Japanese language release with English subs, and it's going to be a Region A locked Blu-ray. It's supposed to be a pretty good film, and there's also an anime out there of the same title, but this is the live-action version.
That looks good.
Yeah, Discotek kind of been killing it over the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
Will Dodson's here. He says, love to see KB Loves Movies on the channel.
Thank you.
And then we've got another one that pissed some people off this week. MVD Rewind putting out LA Wars on Blu-ray on May 16th. The reason this pissed a lot of people off, because this was a Vinegar Syndrome VSA, just like the other one that MVD Rewind already put out. Not even going to mention it. This is one that is actually interesting because it's giving you a reason to upgrade if you have the old one and you really love this movie. There's a new audio commentary with the producer, co-writer, and co-director Tony Kanda, moderated by Serial at Midnight, BlueTuber, the host Heath Holland. There's also a new... Yeah, it's his second one. Nice. There's a new video commentary with producer, co-writer, and co-director Tony Kanda and Heath Holland as well. And they've got some of the other features that were on the Vinegar Syndrome release. You can get this instead of paying $100 on eBay. You can get this on a new Blu-ray, brand new.
Shout out to Heath. Is it the same transfer?
It likely is. They won't say that out loud. It doesn't say it's from a new transfer, but it says restored in 2K in 2020. So yes. Oh yeah,
they're probably so pissed because they paid how much for it since 2020? Yikes.
Yep, and what that tells us too is a lot of these original Vinegar Syndrome VSAs, they probably got the rights for a very specific number that they could sell, not for a length of time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of those first like 10 to be released by another boutique. And then if you remember on the VSA line, around number 10 to 15, they started tweaking the language on the page for the products on the Vinegar Syndrome website. And they would say, instead of "this will never be released again," it was saying something like "this may never be released again," or "this may be released in the future as a standard edition," something like that. So it gives them the option. So they probably changed their contracts.
Keep it open. Yeah. It's interesting to see, like, not only the licensing going from company to company, but also the same transfers too.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that when you pay to license these, you are paying to license the transfer, you are paying to license special features, you are paying to license artwork, and if Vinegar Syndrome owns any / all of this, Vinegar Syndrome's possibly making some money off of this as well.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, I could understand them being upset.
Yeah. Finally, this is the last announcement of the week, and I know that I've got a lot of people that have loved these because they responded well previously. DC Animation, which seems to be the pinnacle of quality out of DC for the last couple of years, they are putting out Batman, The Doom That Came to Gotham on 4K, and there's some questions on the release date on this. It seems to be that they're saying March 28th, but it might be different. The trailer for this shows a different date. To me, this story sounds great, and I haven't read this new comic because I haven't read a new Batman comic in years. But this one says Richard Pace and Troy Nixey, who also did the comic book series with Mike Mignola. Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham is a 1920s-based tale that finds explorer Bruce Wayne accidentally unleashing an ancient evil, expediting his return to Gotham City after a 2-decade hiatus. The logic, science-driven Batman must battle Lovecraftian supernatural forces threatening the sheer existence of Gotham, along the way being aided and confronted by reimagined versions of his well-known allies and enemies like Green Arrow, Ra's al Ghul, Mr. Freeze, Killer Croc, Two-Face, James Gordon, and Bruce's beloved wards prepare for a mystical, often terrifying Batman adventure unlike any other.
Huh. I thought Batman Ninja was weird. Huh.
Have you watched any of the DC animated?
Yeah, I like them for the most part, but sometimes they're a little Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. That sounds like one of them.
That is true. What's going on, Kubrick lover? Wave is asking about the LA Wars. More people can buy this movie now. What's not to like? The only thing I will say, some people that are not true film fans and that are 100% collectors, they get very upset about the word limited and do not like when anybody else gets to, because their stuff drops in value.
I don't buy movies for value. I buy movies for movies.
100% agree. Real quick, let's go through what is coming out next week. And why don't you point out anything that you're super excited about? Kino putting out Death Wish 4K next Tuesday, the Dentist Collection from Vestron, the Jackie Chan Collection from Shout Select, which surprisingly looks kind of decent. Like, they got exclusive features compared to the UK releases. It might be worth a pickup if you've already got them even and you love Jackie Chan.
Yeah, I do. I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Nice. Violent Night is getting its physical release. Freaky on 4K coming from Scream Factory. Men at Work coming on Blu-ray from MVD Rewind. Then we got our Warner Archives with the Long trailer and Goodbye Mr. Chips. MVD Rewind also putting out The Last American Virgin. The 4K release of Belly, which I still can't believe is getting a 4K.
Me neither. I am so shocked. And a Lionsgate Steelbook too, which it has my favorite scene, the opening scene from the movie, as the cover. Incredible. So I'm definitely picking that up. That's what we call a hood classic.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for Belly. That's a great one. Wife versus Secretary from Warner Archive. This Is Not a Burial. It's a Resurrection from Criterion. Scorpion with Two Tails from Full Moon. The Barn Part 2 gets its retail release from Scream Team Releasing. There is that Belly 4K Steelbook, and the colors on it look marvelous.
Yeah.
Glorious coming out from RLJE. That is the Glory Hole thriller. Puppet Master 3 coming out on 4K from Full Moon, but don't get your hopes up on the quality. Playing with Fire coming from Cult Epics. Stuck on You gets a standalone release from Troma. Invitation Only coming from Unearthed Films. This one actually looked really good. Brainwashed. Sex Camera Power coming from Kino.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Velvet Queen coming from Oscilloscope as a retail release. The Tale of King Crab is coming out. I think that might have been all of the big ones. Anything that's huge other than Belly for next week?
Last American Version, I would say, but I'll probably wait and get that on a sale. And I want to see Freaky. I heard some mixed things about it, so I want to see what side I would fall on, whether liking it or not so much.
I got to be honest. I really enjoyed Freaky, and I went into
it. Yeah?
planning to not like it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Vince Vaughn in the classic Parrot Trap playing a 17-year-old female, it works so well. It obviously, that sounds like a funny premise, but it works way better than you think it's going to be.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
I got to check that out.
All right. We have come to the time of the show when we are likely going to piss some people off at some point. Tonight, I've been trying to have some sort of theme to have a discussion with all of the guests on Reconnected, and you did not really hesitate. Immediately, when I said we can do anything, we can do a top 5 of a genre, we can do a director, we can do an actor, you went, all right, Scorsese, immediately. Why is Scorsese the immediate go-to? He even prepped. I love it.
We share a lot of different things. So, New York upbringing, Catholic upbringing, that just that split between the man-made dogma and moral walks of life, same thing. Kind of like students of Hitchcock, and one of his movies, I won't say which one right now, but one of his movies really changed me from being just a movie watcher to what some might call a cinephile. I would just say made me an appreciator of film, because if you ever listen to him, he can take 5 minutes and name 30 directors and 60 movies in that conversation. And when I really got into his movies, I was there just like jotting them down. The Archers, okay, are they both named Archers? Are they brothers? You know, I was doing that thing. And that just like blew my film knowledge. It just mushroomed, you know. So there I was watching things like The Red Shoes, and, you know, not even watching his films so much, but films that he was inspired by. And then I would come back to his films, and then I would see the influences, not like direct, like bites, like what a Tarantino would do, or homages, or like what people do with Spielberg, but just to see the influence themselves. And he still did it his way, you know, to borrow from Frank Sinatra. But it's just something about him, and I don't always agree with him, the things he says and the actions that he takes. I don't think Roman Polanski should be allowed back into the US, but, you know, he does. Different story, different night. But as a filmmaker, he just fascinates me. And this lifelong journey that he has with religion and reflecting it in his movies, that fascinates me, even though I'm not that person. But just the way he lets his art reflect his life journey, I think that's amazing. So, and then he makes some cool ass mob shit too, so there's that too.
Well said. I do have a feeling that the top 5 we're going to go over tonight are probably going to be very different, and I think that that's a very good and telling thing about the sort of filmmaker that Scorsese is.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting aspects of Scorsese for me is the fact that he is this, what is even the right way to say it, but like multi-generational behemoth. He has been seen as elite for decades, literally, and it's not somebody like Spielberg either necessarily, who's been seen as elite for decades as well, but he's more of I think he's a lot more consistent than the other people that would be viewed in this class for what they've contributed to cinema overall. And that's not really a knock on Spielberg necessarily. It's more of a testament to what Scorsese has done. And it's kind of an amazing achievement to be able to have the level of success that he's had from the earliest films to, you know, he has one of the most anticipated films over the next 12 months. People are like clamoring for any details on it. That's astonishing to be able to still be doing that in 2023. What is your first exposure to Scorsese?
seen a TV version of Mean Streets and not understanding a single thing until they hit the scenes in a bar, and then I'm like, oh, that looks familiar. And I was a teenager at the time, so this was pre Goodfellas, but after like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. And then as far as seeing it the way it was meant to be on screen, I think the first thing I saw was Raging Bull. Saw that on VHS. And that was just like an opera to me. That was just like music in motion. So
that's kind of amazing. There are a lot of things that I'm jealous of, and obviously I'm glad I'm and there's no easy way to say this without making you sound old. I'm sorry. I'm a lot more youthful than a lot of the people that I spend my time around, because I try to surround myself with the generation above that can pass on that knowledge to me and be an influence, because I like being that sort of sponge. And one of the things I'm most jealous about is the stories that people can tell about seeing things in the theaters from the 70s and 80s and even the 90s that are just bonkers. Like the fact that you can think back to the Future on opening day in the cinema for some people.
I was just about to say, I went Back to the Future on opening day.
I mean, that's life-changing.
Yeah, and the funny thing was seeing that exact same experience reflected on the screen in Stranger Things, because they went to see Back to the Future. I was like,
yep.
That was me.
Yeah. And the crazy thing, supposedly Stranger Things got a lot of that right.
Yeah, accurate. Very accurate.
So for those watching that have never given like a real deep dive into Scorsese, his first feature wasn't until the 60s, but he actually directed in the 50s. He put out a short that he directed in 1959. So here we are, and it is 64 years after his first directed piece that is credited on IMDb, and he is putting out another film in 2023, and who knows what the state of things, it potentially, I guess, could get delayed to early 2024, but all signs are pointing to 2023. And he is also one of those people that have spanned a wide swath of genres. I think that there are not a ton of filmmakers that can do everything as well as he had across this broad spectrum. With the ones that you're already pointing out, and with some of the bigger hitters like mob movies, which of his entire filmography that you've seen do you think is his most like outlying film?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say probably something like After Hours. When I found out he did that, it didn't compute for me, because it's not his typical foray at the time into like the genres that he was covering. Right behind that, and I almost think it was his trying to do a Barry Lyndon, was Age of Innocence. But to me, that's done so well that he didn't have to try to imitate anyone. It was just beautiful on its own.
Yeah, Stan Geezy seems to agree with you there, and I'm going to come back through some of these comments, I promise. But obviously, there's a lot that if we start discussing specific titles, we could easily give away these top fives. So maybe we should just break into those pretty quickly, because then I've got a handful of questions that I'm going to throw out there and make you piss some people off after this. So we're going to do honorable mentions, because we always, I'm known for having a list of too many things when I say a list of top five. So we're going to mention those after our top five, so that doesn't spoil anything. So why don't you go first as the guest? What is your number five? And by the way, for everybody watching, these are favorite Scorsese films, not necessarily best. Favorite Scorsese films.
Thank you for clearing that up. My number five is going to be Wolf of Wall Street.
Nice.
I like when a movie is long and I don't feel it. And most movies, including some of his, have pacing issues. Please don't tell Thelma I said that. But this is not one of them. I really enjoyed all 180 minutes of this movie. And there is some scenes in it where physical comedy takes over. Like, I'm assuming you've seen it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the Lamborghini scene. That is like, you might as well give me sketch comedy in the middle of this movie. And I don't know, it's just like little departures. Like you could have, not in this case, but you could have like a serious mob movie and a conversation can turn funny and you realize you're dealing with everyday people and they have these comedic moments in their life. And I could care less about the 546 F words or how many there are in the movie. I just think everyone in this movie just did a great job. Of course, Leo and excuse me, all the way down to Carl Reiner. I talk about a comedic moment when he's yelling and then he answers the phone. That's comedy right there to me. And I think just balancing the line between this biopic of a movie and these little comedic elements in it, I just think it was great.
That's a good call out. There's a couple scenes that I think are just marvelous in that, but I have a feeling we're going to be talking about a couple of those in just a few minutes, so I will hold out on that.
Okay.
I would love to highlight something that I fear does not get talked about when associating with Scorsese much anymore, and I don't know why it's so overlooked, because I do think that there's at least one powerhouse performance in this film. And because I'm so into genre films, I get to throw out the horror thriller aspect of Scorsese, which he's not done very many things on that side. I'm gonna have to go with Cape Fear. It is so overlooked in his filmography.
I agree.
De Niro,
especially for being a remake.
Yes, De Niro is. There is so much that can be said about his performances in so many films, but Cape Fear might have been the first one that really, like, genuinely captivated me from De Niro, and I didn't see it like terribly young. I'm young. I'm gonna throw that in a lot on a couple of these, because my first Scorsese watch came after a lot of what people would say are his heaviest hitters, and unfortunately, that undoubtedly will likely color somebody's opinions on some of the films because of when you see it and what's formidable. But oh my God, Cape Fear is one of those ones that once I started getting into genre cinema and looking back on what Scorsese had done, it is not something that you expect from him. And for somebody that does a lot of crime films and thrillers, sure, it kind of makes sense and slides into some aspects of it, but it is so different from a lot of his filmography. And De Niro is just, I mean, certain scenes he's like gross, he's intimidating, he's De Niro, and there's so much to unpack in this film. And again, with it being a remake, even though it's Scorsese, that's a lot of pressure, and a lot of people don't realize that because of when it came out, which was 91, I think 91, 92, somewhere around there.
Yep, 91.
There was not, like, we were not overran with remakes like we are now. This was still something that, because it was still kind of a new idea, this had a lot of potential pressure, and he came out and knocked it out of the park. And for some reason, we don't give that much love to Cape Fear anymore. So Cape Fear, what do you think?
I totally agree. And I have this theory now, especially with collectors. If we don't have a current Blu-ray or 4K release of a catalog title, we don't talk about those actors.
Yep.
Or we don't talk about those movies. I'll say a name and you'll totally understand what I mean when I say this. Wesley Snipes. How many catalog titles of Wesley Snipes movies? Warner Brothers have almost all of them.
Yeah.
But we don't see any Wesley Snipes movies, and he was the man back in the day.
Yep.
If something is released, besides Demolition Man, but if something is released that has like Passenger 57 and all that stuff in it, people will talk about him again.
Yep.
So I think because we don't see anything coming out right now with Cape Fear, either edition, because Mitchum was downright ferociously scary in the original. But that's one of the things I think he did a job in a performance in the remake that, not to say made you forget about Mitchum, but you know, said he's equally evil, but he owned the role. So yeah, I would like to see that get a release.
Stan Geezy says Cape Fear is actually kind of zany. I like that word associated with this. Terry says Cape Fear was my first Scorsese on the big screen. I was getting into the earlier films right around this time. Very nice. Paul Huggins shouts out, I love how Scorsese can jump from genre to genre. And again, not many people can do it as successfully as he does, in my opinion. We got a couple more I was going to shout out related to those. All right, everything else I think we're going to hit again, so I'll wait on some more. What is your number 4?
Number four. I was talking about it before. Like I said, it is Music in Motion. It is Raging Bull. There's, just from a film lover perspective, there's so many scenes, and it's a rough movie to watch. He wasn't a likable character. I've seen recently people making a comparison with this and Rocky. I think the difference is Rocky is a boxing movie. This is introspective of a man.
Oh yeah.
Who was a boxer. I don't think it's a boxing movie. It's not a sport movie. There's no feel good. There's no rise of triumphant music at the end. It's not that kind of music, you know. It's not that kind of movie. But I do like the look at LaMotta's life that they show here. I like finding out little things about it, like he gave handheld Super 8 cameras to strangers, and they said, I don't know how to frame this. It was like, okay, we want it to look like somebody who doesn't know how to frame a movie. So I'm watching this over the years, and this is one that I came to late. I came to this probably in my 30s, so only the last 20 some odd years that I've been watching it. But every time I watch it, especially last year with the Criterion 4K coming out, there's always something different that I pick up on it, or something different that I focus on. One time it was just Pesci, just watching Pesci's performance in it. Another time it was, what's her name? Madsen? I forget her name. Anyway, the person who played his wife.
Yes.
Kathy Moriarty. That's it. I was thinking of Virginia Madsen. Wrong person.
I immediately, when you said
movie.
Madsen, I was like, Virginia Madsen? That's not it.
No. She's Candyman. Yeah, so just performances all around, even people who became more famous later on, like Frank Vincent, you know, mob movies, of course. But yeah, it's just something to this, and I think this is the first movie that he worked with Thelma Schoonmaker as far as director, editor, so her work in this is phenomenal.
Raging Bull. So this is maybe my hottest take of the night.
Go for it.
I've not rewatched Raging Bull in a long time, but I am not, at least as far as I remember, a huge fan of the story overall. I obviously it is shot magnificently. That goes without saying. But I think a big part of it might just be I just don't like boxing at all. And that could take away
some of it.
Exactly. That might take away a big part of it, but quite honestly, considering the last time I watched it, a lot has changed with the way I look at film, and I know I just need to watch it again. It's
just
been
like
far
we
too
were
long.
saying before, 8, 10, 15 years, rewatch a movie. Did you pick up the Criterion 4K?
Very late, so it was just here recent, but yes, it is one that I certainly need to take a look at it. And I did put it in to check the quality and make sure that it was not a flub of a 4K disc, and it looks gorgeous.
Beautiful transfer.
Yeah, it looks
Beautiful
absolutely
transfer.
wonderful.
Yeah, the sound was kind of funky for me, but
Ooh, interesting. Number 4, speaking of sound, is one that I fell in love with the sound on this one, and this is the one that I brought up that was my first foray into Scorsese, and which is interesting because it's not like a lot of his other stuff. And based on my age at the time, it makes sense that this would be the first one. Gangs of New York. I watched this movie and something about this just clicked. This is one of those movies that, other than like Spielberg and, probably not even not many others at that time. Because what year did this come out? Like 2001 or 2?
I think so. Yeah, I want to say 2.
2002. So I was, I believe, 15 when this was released. So I was at that age where things were starting to be cinema rather than just entertainment at home. And other than Spielberg, I think this is the film that made me go, holy shit, who made this movie? Because I want to see more like that. And then it led to a real love for like Daniel Day-Lewis, and gave this perhaps an appreciation that wouldn't lead to a whole lot of others that were as good as this, but even John C. Reilly, a lot of roles in this film were just amazing. And when you look at everything nowadays, this movie kind of stands the test of time as just incredible overall. I mean, the entire cast, I've said some of the bigger names, but Leo DiCaprio, haven't even mentioned that yet. Cameron Diaz is in this.
I was just about to say.
The other names, we got Brendan Gleeson is in this, who just had an incredible role. Henry Thomas, who
E.T.
Amazing. I love Gangs of New York and how it turned me on to what a powerhouse performance could be through Daniel Day-Lewis, and the story that it tells, and the immediate like gross transformation into this city that was just not in I don't want to be there, but I can feel it sort of feeling. This is like the first transportational film for me, I think, when I watched it. It was just a really wonderful experience, and honestly, that nostalgia probably plays a huge part in why I love this film still.
Yeah, and just talking about the length of his movies, I mean, now we get something like The Irishman or Aviator or Wolf of Wall Street, and we're like, 3 hours? Oh, it's Scorsese. Yeah, right. no big deal. But
only 3 hours.
Back then, only 3? But back then, I think that was like his first foray into making like an epic length movie. And I mean, this is going to sound real nerdy and music-like, but the movements in that movie is just amazing for something so long. I mean, if you give me a 90-minute movie and it's like 1, 2, 3 acts, roll credits, I'm used to that. But just to see that spread over like almost 3 hours, that's a big difference. And it plays well, so I'm not surprised that it holds up well. I haven't seen it in 10 to 15 years, so yeah.
The thing you just mentioned with the kind of the musicality of the script overall is something that I've noticed with Scorsese, is that the ones that really work for me, and again, quick aside before I finish that sentence, but he doesn't have bad films, in my opinion. Even his worst stuff, people wish that they could have done his worst. But his great films that really stick with me, they nail the flow aspect. There are other films of his that I don't love because I feel like they either judder a little bit, or they've got maybe a couple scenes that honestly I could just completely do without. But overall, the ones that are just damn near perfect for me from him, they literally, like, you can watch it like the waves of a river. They are perfectly matched up with what is coming next. They tonally, beat for beat, are something that deliver like, oh my gosh, this is just a continuous driving cycle of either tension or storytelling or building up to a climax that you're just amazed by, and it works so well. Yeah, it's true. Very true. Alrighty, sir. Middle of your list.
This is going to seem like I have all the biggies here, but the thing that I really enjoyed about this, and also, well, I'll just say this one, the writing in this one is one of his big ones that he had with Paul Schrader, and my number 3 is Taxi Driver. And this is one that, when you talk about the biggies or, the classic Scorsese films, this is one that I didn't come to early. And then it seemed like when I finally watched it on my own, it was like I got like 2 or 3 other opportunities to see it again. I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm overwhelmed with this movie. And I think that kind of helped me not only get the movie, but understand the underlying parts of the movie, because I watched it, I got the Blu-ray, I watched it, and then at the time I was doing film school, and all of a sudden we had a switch in the movies that we were watching for the night, and we ended up watching this, and I'm like, again. But it's always interesting. Like, I know there's a lot of people who do not like 2001 Space Odyssey, and I'm like, but if you had someone to explain it to you, you might enjoy it more.
Yep.
Same thing with Casablanca. A lot of people don't like that because they think it's just a love story. Anyway, in this one, it's a lot more than what's on the surface level. It's a lot more than this insane taxi driver. There's the PTSD element of someone coming home from war. There is the 70s version of New York City, not the current one. That's owned by a totally different country now, and a lot more cleaned up, I'll say. But the grittiness of New York City at the time was a character in the movie itself. So it's just a lot of elements that goes into this film that just makes it a classic for me. So it's my number 3. I
like Taxi Driver. I'm not going to put it down at all. It's not my top 5. I will spoil that right now. I really like a lot of aspects of this, primarily the fact that he's like breathing his New York into life in this film.
Yeah.
And it is such like New York is almost the biggest character in this entire movie, and it is so important to look at it with that aspect because of how much it changes the story of Travis, of everybody around him. The whole cast in this is really good, but again, New York just shines as somewhere that feels like a completely different world, because it kind of is nowadays. It's nothing like this. This is, again, a very transportational idea of, I wish I could be in this place. And when you're staring at this with 50 years in the rearview mirror, it is a foreign land altogether. Nothing is like that anymore. And this movie is really great. De Niro just absolutely kills it, obviously. A lot of the other cast in this, we have not a huge part, but Peter Boyle's in this, and Albert Brooks is in this.
Albert Brooks is really good in this.
Love Albert Brooks. Jodie Foster, obviously.
Keitel.
Yeah,
and of course Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah.
One thing you just said before, and I think this is the part that a lot of people miss. Like we were saying, New York is a main element, but it's New York through his eyes.
Yes.
What he sees. He doesn't see Central Park and the grass around it. He sees the pimps and the junkies and
the depravity.
He sees the darkness of New York City, especially at night.
I love D. Sibner says, I can smell how bad the city is whenever I watch it. Exactly.
Hey, that's my hometown. Be careful.
Oh man. So the next one, this is one that I feel like it's gotten more love recently because of another movie, which but I'm gonna have to go with for my number 3, The King of Comedy. I think that this is a true understated masterpiece, and is somehow not one that is getting the attention nowadays, because I don't, is there even a US release of this right now? I don't know that.
I got it from a Blu-ray. I want to say I got it from one of those labels, if it was Kino or one of them. I can't remember. But
see,
I
there
got it.
Is a Blu-ray. Oh, it's in print. Okay. Oh, it's from Fox itself. Weird. You can get it on Amazon right now for $19. I happen to have a release of King of Comedy that came in a steelbook from Zavvi years ago.
Oh yeah.
And it's not any better than the US release or anything like that. But King of Comedy is special. Obviously, the story has been reappraised recently because of the Joker. First off, what do you think about that?
When something like that causes people to make references to other movies, it's one thing. But if it doesn't draw you to go watch the movie and you just want to make a reference, but if I say, yeah, so what did you think of the movie, and you can't tell me because you didn't see it, that's where the conversation ends, or at least that's where I, mentally tune out. Yeah. I think it was great before the references, and I see them more as coincidences than references. And I think it's overblown the way people are making references to King of Comedy from Joker.
Right.
I see the similarities, but I wouldn't say it's a reference. I think it's just coincidences.
I think the biggest thing that there's maybe a couple shots that you could say are almost lifted literally, but other than that, it is unfairly lumped together in with the Joker, and I do not get it. The biggest thing for me, and might be odd considering the film itself, because obviously De Niro, great, Jerry Lewis, incredible, top of his game in this film, easily. I easily, though, always gravitate to what is her last name? As Sandra Bernhard. I think you say it differently than Bernhard.
Bernhard.
Oh, Bernhard. There it is. So she is magnetic in that film. There is something about her character that it really grabs a hold of you, and this story is just one that I don't necessarily want to say that I relate to or anything, but it's something that it's so just real. Like, a lot of aspects of this film, you can feel the emotion in it. It's a very tangible type of film, and I just genuinely grabbed a hold of it and truly loved this movie from the very first time I saw it.
Once again, it's very easy to look at surface level and say it's about a stalker, but you look a little deeper and it's kind of like just about loneliness, and everything this man goes through is as a result of being lonely.
Right.
And that's where I see like similarities, but I think Pumpkin is definitely not Arthur Fleck in the loneliness aspect. So that's why I say it's coincidences.
Right. And not to, wow, I didn't plan on bringing this up in any way, but not to bring up politics in any sort of way, but the difference in it really seems like the difference between somebody that's just had it rough for a while, and now's the modern version, which again, not saying they're the same at all, but the Joker version is like full-blown reassessment of the whole like incel agenda and what we've been seeing over the last handful of years. And if you pay attention in pop culture, look who grabbed onto that film. A lot of people that truly embraced, not just loved the movie, but embraced the film as like an identity, are aligning with that very incel mindset, and somebody that they think they're all not only just alone, but the victim. And that is a very different feeling from the two films.
Yeah, and they were on the train with him in their Joker mask.
Exactly. Want to shout out
to my... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, shout out to my son, who was the first one I had a discussion with after seeing the Joker with him. He pointed that out immediately. So shout out to him. Sorry.
Nice. I just want to say, Paul Huggins says King of Comedy is on Hulu right now. So I know a lot of people have never seen King of Comedy. If you haven't, as soon as we get done in 43 minutes, because KB and I are long-winded, go watch it, because it is absolutely worth it. And I'm sure it's the full film and everything. I can't imagine Hulu would cut anything out. Just go watch the film.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good one.
All right, top two from a master.
This one made me happy because it got him the Academy Award. The name of it is The Departed. To me, when I look at his movies and I want to say something is close to perfect, I look at this movie. Yes, I know it's a soft remake of Infernal Affairs. This one is more of a reference than Joker and King of Comedy.
Absolutely.
But there's so many great performances in this. I'm talking Jack. One word. That's it. You got Leo. You got Matt Damon. Vera Farmiga. And even like, what's his name? Sheen. I don't know why I'm going blank right now.
Is it Martin in that one?
Yes, Martin Sheen. Thank you. All around great performances, and it's almost like whoever is in the scene is just bouncing off each other as far as performing great. You got Marky Mark. How's your mother? You know, great performances all around. And to me, this is a makeup for a lot of the other films that he deserved Oscars for, but I'm glad this one got it. It remains one of the movies that I watch all the time because I just think it's great, all the way down to the closing scene. So I love it.
The Departed is top tier Scorsese for me. It is not my number one or two. This is one that I've loved, and I think nowadays that it might be the most accessible Scorsese film.
Easily.
There's a couple that I might throw out there now, just in retrospect, but the only thing that really takes me out of this film is how much it feels like Mark Wahlberg is just playing himself. And
that's why I said that. How's your mother? It really is. It's him. But you know what? It's almost like casting directors want that because he was a terrible Sully in Uncharted.
Yeah.
But it's like they didn't want Sully. They wanted Mark Wahlberg. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The storylines in this are great. I think Matt Damon is putting on maybe a career best performance for him, in my opinion. There's only a couple more that I might even put anywhere near that, and I don't even know that I can make a well thought out argument for it. With this film, though, there are so many things that have hurt the reputation that don't need to. Like a lot of people butthurt that he won the directing Oscar for this because of other films from that year, and he shouldn't have won it for this. He should have won it earlier. Blah blah blah. But the movie is still fantastic. Period.
Yeah.
The script itself in this is another one that you cannot argue with a single scene that it flows improperly. This movie is it's long, but it's tight in a weird way. It is a movie, like you said earlier, it does not feel like it's the length that it actually is. And again, it's not 3 hours, but it doesn't feel like it's 2.5 either. And I mean, speaking of Alec Baldwin, he's in this as well. He's decent. Anthony Anderson playing one of his better parts. I love Anthony Anderson.
So do I.
Obviously, Jack is mind-blowing in this, and it's probably his last incredible performance for an actor that I have always loved.
Yeah. He had one troubling scene in the movie, but we don't talk about it.
No. We'll mute that when we show the kids later.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I feel like there's somebody else from the cast that I wanted to bring up, and I can't remember anybody. But this is just it's an overall fun movie too. It's just a very entertaining Scorsese flick.
Very.
Number 2, then. Oh gosh, this was starting to be difficult for me, and these top. I don't know, maybe the top 4 actually were very difficult to actually place in position. And I settled on my number 2 being Casino. A lot of people are going to choose at least one of his 2 major, or now kind of 3 major gangster epics. And I think it might just be because of my history with Casino that I like it just a little bit more. I think Goodfellas might be slightly overrated, but it's still an incredible movie. I got nothing against Goodfellas. I will throw out that maybe the reason why I love this movie so much is perhaps a little bit selfish, I guess might be a good way to say it, and that's because of a very specific performance. I absolutely adore Joe Pesci, and his performance in Casino is so incredible. Just being a kid that grew up in the 90s with Home Alone being a staple and falling in love with him then, and then getting to be like 10 or 12 and finally getting to see some of his genuine, really great comedic takes. Like, obviously, My Cousin Vinny is one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
But then following that up with Casino, like, Joe Pesci can do almost no wrong.
Yeah.
And his stuff in Casino is just legendary.
There's a lot of people who are, I don't even want to call it revisionists, because there's a lot of people who are coming to both Casino and Goodfellas now that never seen it before and are preferring Casino over Goodfellas. Just, I think Casino does a better job at upholding, and I don't even want to say staying relevant, but it has a better rewatch factor with today's viewer than Goodfellas do.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I prefer Casino to Goodfellas," but it's a solid film. I know it's almost like people wanted Goodfellas Part 2, and they got Casino, and at the time they were like, "Oh, I don't like it as much. It's trying to be Goodfellas." I'm like, "No, it's trying to be another mob film, and it's a totally different story. And dare I say it, it's equally as good a story. It doesn't have to be more the same. It stands on its own." And I think as time goes on, it's going to be more people that put Casino over Goodfellas just because the story just stands up better.
That's true. And then, not to mention, I grew up in California, close to Vegas. And just literally the setting alone is one that I could relate to just slightly more.
Yeah.
Yeah, Casino's great. Gosh, to make it known when I first saw it, I remember wearing out our sleeve from the VHS where we had to take out the second tape and go put it in the VCR. And obviously there's a handful of Scorsese releases that needed that, but Casino, I think Casino and Titanic were the only ones we actually owned that were double VHSs.
Yeah. Wow. So none of the classics, no Lawrence, no Ben-Hur.
My parents were never into that. No. I had to develop a love for the classics after I got older. My parents were very much like druggy hippies. Not into Gone with the Wind, more so into like Taking Woodstock type of films.
There you go.
It's all you, my friend. Bring us home.
Okay. Based on that last conversation we just had,
I wonder what it's going to be.
yeah. I'll just say one of my honorable mentions is Casino, because number one is Goodfellas,
which is my honorable mention.
Instead of talking about the movie and the performances and the dolly zoom and all that good stuff, I'm going to tell you how I first saw this movie. So I went to my girlfriend's house because her little sister was having a birthday party, and most of the people were outside. I came into the living room. They're watching the beginning of Goodfellas on HBO. And, you know, it's like, ever since I was a kid, I always want to be a gangster, blah, blah, blah. And I got drawn and I started watching it. And I'm watching it just like a regular movie watching. And then all of a sudden they're walking into the Copa, and I'm looking at this and like I'm mesmerized. And once they got to the table and they sat down, I was like, wait a minute, that camera never broke away. That was one long shot. Oh my God. And of course I'd seen it before in movies like in Jaws when they're taking the ferry across, blah, blah, blah. But at that moment, I went from just being a movie watcher to wanting to find out who made this movie. Who's the director? Martin Scorsese. I don't know who he is. And that got me into all the aspects of movies that I am into today. You know, I could look at Banshees of Inisherin and tell you that the cinematography was not only a character in the film, but it also separated the scenes from the previous to the next. I didn't know any of that stuff before Goodfellas. So my reason for it being number one is more nostalgia than anything else. I would quicker say Departed is a more complete film than Goodfellas, but I still put Goodfellas at 5 stars because I've seen it so many times, and like you said, not best, favorite. So that is my number one favorite Scorsese film. And that's where this is from. Opening credits, they go zooming by.
So, as it is my honorable mention, I will throw in that it is absolutely an incredible film. It is one that I saw and, again, truly loved. I thought it was an absolute accomplishment. It was an achievement. It was something that should be looked at as just genuinely astounding that somebody could get that made and have this sort of sheen at the end of it, that it would look like this amazing product. And then discovering the rest of what he's done, you can tell that most of his films have that amazing, like, how did you make this? That exactly. What are you doing? Like, this is so almost impossible, and yet he pulls off some of the best in history. And again, we're going to get into some of those other hot takes and opinions in just a couple minutes, but Goodfellas, again, if you've not seen it, great looking 4K, a film that should be revisited, a film that should be looked at in the lens of looking back through how he's evolved as a filmmaker, and look at the shots that he pulled off then, and how, God, what are we at? 33 years?
33, yep.
Holy shit. 33 years later, that type of a filmmaker is still putting out films that people are looking at as, is this his best film ever?
Yeah.
That's stupid. That should not be possible.
Yeah, it's really dumb. I will say one last thing on it. Besides the voiceover work in B Movie, this is Ray Liotta's best performance.
Well, that was a good moment. I appreciate that.
I try.
I just saw for the first time. Gosh, I'm not going to remember the exact title of it, but the Brad Pitt film from 2012 or 13 with Ray Liotta. The cover is Brad Pitt with the shotgun. He's got the greaseback hair.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know which one you're talking about. Let me look it up quick.
Somebody will get it in the chat before I say it, but I actually thought Liotta was shockingly good in that. His spoiler alert, if you haven't seen a 10-year-old film with Liotta, I'm sorry, earmuffs. His death scene, like, he acts the hell out of the death scene.
Oh my God, he's been in 99 films.
Killing Them Softly. Thank you, Silent Mandible and Ruben Villa.
Thank you.
That movie is very good. I didn't think the movie was great overall, but man, Ray Liotta in that is a powerhouse performance.
Also, Copland too. He was good in that.
Yes, Copland is so good.
Copland is underrated in my opinion. It's the best non-Scorsese movie ever made. It plays like a Scorsese film. To completely change views, because that was the perfect comment to do this on. This is a very not Scorsese movie. My number one is one you already mentioned, and that is The Wolf of Wall Street. I think this is my favorite, primarily because it is one of the ones that, to me, really highlighted Scorsese's range into what he could do in other genres. Because there is stuff in this movie that is funnier than the funniest comedies in the last 15 years. There's stuff in this movie that has more earnest acting than some of these actors have ever portrayed. Matthew McConaughey, who I think he was not even supposed to be in this film, and he was on set or something, and he played that part.
Like the fact that he took an entire act of the film and owns it, essentially, it is so ridiculous what they got out of this movie. You spoke so eloquently on it. The one thing that really hit me the first time I watched this movie, before I rewatched it 9 times, other than the Margot Robbie scene, was Leo DiCaprio falling down the stairs. The shots that they use to make it look like he's falling down 43 stairs or whatever, and then the hilarity of giving the cut zoom and it's 4 steps or 5 steps or whatever. That is such a well shot scene that so many people just overlooked as just another part of a Scorsese film, but it really showed how much Leo is an absolutely ridiculously great actor, first of all. But Scorsese, to craft that in that way and put this in this movie as this random comedic element, it works so well. I think that Jordan is an incredible anti-hero in this film. You love to hate him. You obviously want to see him fail. You want to see him be brought to justice, but at the same time, keep living it up because this is entertaining as shit. The characters in this movie, Jonah Hill, I did not even get a mention the first time around on this movie.
I know.
Wild performance from him. This is maybe the first for him that people went, oh my God, like this dude deserves so much more attention than he gets. God, this is, yes, I love The Wolf of Wall Street. Since this is all about physical media, I am so grateful that Arrow was able to put out the beautiful release that they did this last year. The disc itself is decent. The packaging is incredible. I'm just glad that it was able to get a good release and not just relegated to some studio disc.
And the pack of cocaine got through customs.
Yes, and it's all shiny and glossy and textured. It's so great. Oh man. Okay, honorable mentions for you. I mentioned my one honorable mention.
I can't help it. I got 3. So I say Casino. Second one is Color of Money, because I was a big fan of The Hustler, and although once again not best but favorite, it was all the years later, and it was a good, not great sequel to a movie that I think is one of the best movies from the 50s. And then 3 is Bringing Out the Dead. And Kino, please utilize your contract with Paramount and bring it out, please, before the contract ends, because I really need an upgrade from that, because the DVD is crapola.
This is one that I was going to ask if you had any Scorsese blind spots. This is my most egregious one. I've still never seen Bringing Out the Dead.
So good. I mean, it's Nicky Cage almost going full Nicky Cage, but he's doing it as an EMT driver,
in a Scorsese film.
So it's it's like parfait. There's layers, So. What about you?
That's Casino was my main one, or not Casino. Goodfellas was my main honorable mention. Throwing let me pull up a list, because I really only put down Goodfellas.
Okay. While you do that, question for you: people in your Discord and your followers, any of them really good at finding like hard to find DVDs?
Yeah, I think a handful of us are actually.
Okay. So one of the things I plan to do this year is to round out my Scorsese collection, or upgrade whatever I have to the best format available. And one of them I am missing is A Personal Journey Through Film with Martin Scorsese. Right now it's only on DVD, but it looks like a Criterion cover, classic black and white photo. But I've seen it a few times. Yeah, it's called A Personal Journey with Martin Scorsese Through American Movies. It's basically film class. It's so good. He's taking you through decades, through genres. It's beautiful. So I need that in my collection, because I would sit down on a Saturday and watch it. And how long is it? Because we like long movies. I have no idea how long it is, but it's good.
What year is that from, even?
95. And it's really sad that I know that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have a Macari search alert for it. That's how much I want it.
Nice. All right, so if anybody finds it and you're willing to give it to KB, email me, and I will get you in contact with KB. Stan says, I'm holding it in my hand right now.
Shut up. 225 minutes. And it looks like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have like 312 comments to go through, but before we go into that, I wanted to highlight one thing that because it's not actually his filmmaking, will probably not get a lot of attention tonight, but I think it is understated and needs to be highlighted just how much the Scorsese cinema project has made a massive impact all over the world. The World Cinema Project. So the ability to highlight filmmakers from other countries simply by being Martin Scorsese could have been completely ignored. And instead, he comes out and highlights these incredibly artistic films, these films that are deserving of attention from other countries, that are able to be released here in the US, that you can rent from the library, that you can see on the Criterion channel because they are all there always. That is something that is damn near impossible for most people to get done. And the fact that he's used his legacy to do that for other people alone is something that just commands respect. And I would absolutely just someday dream of shaking his hand and saying thank you for what you've done for those filmmakers.
Yeah. And some of them really have gotten their career kickstarted because of, one of their films being in those box sets. So it's really cool.
That is absolutely the case. Good Lord. Yeah, I was maybe not kidding about 312 comments. So I'm going to go back through and highlight some of these. I apologize to everybody if I did not get through all of them. Let's see. Kubrick Lover says Scorsese's phenomenal. He's a cinematic encyclopedia. I like that he preserves films. We just kind of said that. Yeah. Taxi Driver was very influential on Stan Geezy, but my faves are King of Comedy and After Hours. I feel like After Hours is getting more love as there's more time from the release of the film, which is interesting.
Yeah, that should be getting a restoration soon.
Yeah, that's been commanded for every single Criterion release ever. Stan Geezy was saying that I was calling him old and talking about old people like him. I was. Thank you, Stan. Paul says Raging Bull might be in his top 10 all time. Interesting. Oh, wow. And that's a good question. Any of those 5 that you brought up, do any of those breach your top 10 of all time?
Departed.
Nice. That's a good choice. And honestly, that's probably my next honorable mention, because it's a movie that I've watched, God, probably more than any of his other ones at this point.
Yeah.
It's just it's that accessible, literally.
Yeah. If anybody wants to say, well, where do I start? I give them that. And if they want something after that, I give them Aviator of all things. Because I think that's also equally accessible, almost equally accessible. But it still doesn't touch like the Scorsese motif that we associate him with. But it gives you a good idea of his direction. And if they could sit through that and not feel like it's too long, they're hooked.
Interesting. Dude McMahon says, I was never a fan of the mob films, but when I saw Taxi Driver at 15, it changed my image of what a movie hero was supposed to look and act like.
Anti-hero.
Yeah. Let's see. We got Kubrick says Raging Bull should have won Best Picture and Best Director instead of Ordinary People. I think he deserved his Oscar, but it was more for paying his dues than for his best films. That's what it felt like.
Yep.
Will Dodson says Age of Innocence is his favorite Scorsese film. Interesting. Will has this deep-seated passion against The Departed and didn't watch any Scorsese films for the next 10 years. And now he's going back and watching all of them from the beginning on. So He is right in the middle of that right now, actually. Terry says, Color of Money was the first Scorsese I saw. It was on VHS. The controversy around The Last Temptation of Christ captured my curiosity. Still have the local articles about it. Honestly, kind of surprised that's the first time either of us have said The Last Temptation of Christ. It's not my favorite, but it is one that obviously got him a shit ton of attention for.
Yeah, mostly from people who hadn't seen the movie at the time. So once I hear that, once again, I turn off my hearing aids. I shut down. I don't.
Hilarious how that worked back then, though.
Yeah.
The 70s and 80s. There are so many times that people wanted just to protest a film. Yeah. Kubrick Lover says Gangs in New York is not his greatest, but it's a lot of fun. I agree on both points. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Scorsese's homages don't stick out like a sore thumb like Tarantino's do. De Palma does excellent homages too. I would agree there fully. And do you disagree there?
I have a love-hate relationship with De Palma. When he does Hitchcock, sometimes it's too deliberate, and then other times it's like, oh, okay. So,
funny enough,
film.
I was about to say, I think De Palma might be one of the only filmmakers that I would say could hold his own against Scorsese in terms of mastering every genre.
I can see that, but like I said,
not that he's always successful, but that he's had masterpieces in pretty much every genre.
I have this reverence for Hitch, so it's like when I see you doing a imitation of it better be good. Yeah. And sometimes it's not. I mean, not Gus Van Sant level, but no.
Thank you for clarifying. Kubrick Lover says maybe I'd say Casino might be a little overlooked because it's right after Goodfellas, and yeah, that's people wanted Goodfellas Part 2.
Yeah.
Seibner says I'm waiting for the I've never remembered how to say this because I've only seen it once. Kundun diehards to storm the gates at any moment.
They're not coming.
Let's see. Dude McMahon asks, am I a fan of the original Cape Fear? It goes without saying it's one of J. Lee Thompson's best. It's been so long since I've seen it. While I was listening to KB wax poetic about it, I went and added it to my wish list so that I don't forget it and get an updated copy because I think I might have a DVD in a box somewhere. I've not seen that film in ages.
It's on Blue.
Skolder's 5 favorites: The Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, The Departed, The Irishman, and Goodfellas. So neither one of us said The Irishman. What are your thoughts on The Irishman?
Okay, this is going to be my hot take of the evening. So he made this infamous diatribe about Marvel films and being amusement parks and roller coasters, and then he turned around and took one of the most interesting elements from these movies and put it in his movie The Irishman, which was the de-aging process. Maybe he should have went to Disney Marvel and said, hey, how do you do that? Do you get a actor to replace it? Oh, you got her mother. So you got her mother to act as her and you just changed her face. Maybe I should have did that with De Niro in Irishman. So he don't look like, I'll use that word, old codger with a young face. A poorly CGI'd young face. That's what I think of it.
There are scenes in The Irishman that are so poorly done with the CGI that I am baffled that people honestly love the rest of the movie for as bad as those scenes are. There is the stomping scene is the most egregious one.
Outside the store. Yeah.
It is so, just the way the person moves, you can tell it's a 9,500-year-old person trying to be 48 or whatever, and it does not work.
Yeah. I'll give you one better. I saw that in the movies with no intermission.
Wow.
Yeah. Rough day. A lot of trips to the bathroom.
Yikes. Skolder says worst film I've seen from him is Silence. I've seen a lot of love for Silence today. Have you seen Silence?
Yeah, I went to a screener of it down in the plaza. It's low on my bar. I won't say it's worst, but once again, it's a part of his life journey through religion and trying to find himself through it. So I think Garfield did a really good performance, but that's really all I could say positive-wise about the movie.
I gotta admit, that's another blind spot for me. I was never super interested in seeing it. It looked to be shot beautiful, but all of Scorsese's are, so it wasn't quite enough to pull me in, but eventually I'll see it.
Rainy Day or Starter for Nor'easter, you'll be fine.
There you go. Ruben Villa says, when I saw Silence, I was amazed and confused.
That's a good definition of it. Amazing and confusing.
That's pretty cool. Kubrick Lover, I met Paul Schrader and he signed my Taxi Driver, Last Temptation of Christ, and Raging Bull DVDs. Kathy Moriarty signed my Raging Bull DVD. That is awesome. Very awesome. Seibner says, Taxi Driver is the best in his opinion. So many people think it's dark and depressing, and it is, obviously, but I can rewatch it at any point and have a blast watching it. Let's see. Been wanting to rewatch Gangs of New York. I think it's due for that for a lot of people. It's, I believe, this year, 20th anniversary. They're coming out with that Steelbook on Blu-ray, which is hilarious that they're doing that instead of a 4K.
And it's on HBO Max. I saw it the other day.
There you go. Yeah, I hope a lot of people give it some time this year, because it's, if you have not watched it since 2003 or even like 2007, it's been a lot of time. It deserves another one.
Yeah, another watch.
Let's see. There's a one that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised is missing from all of this. Shutter Island. How do you feel about Shutter Island?
I love that movie. I think it's unique. I think it's one of those movies that leave you with a discussion at the end. Mark Ruffalo does a great job in it. Leo, of course. I always like to have conversations with people after seeing that for the first time, just to see what they think about it. But it wasn't what I thought it was going in the first time, but since then I've watched it a couple times. For a matter of fact, I want to find a good deal on that red and black Steelbook of the 4K, because I think that's a cool set too.
Yeah, I think that Shutter Island is good. I certainly don't understand all the hate. The one thing I will say, though, and I said this in my Discord today, I think that it is his least rewatchable film. I think that if you watch it once, if you never saw the trailer, you're going to be completely surprised by it. And then maybe you watch it one more time and go, oh, yeah, I can see a lot of the clues. But then after that, for me at least, there was no desire to see it anymore that often.
I end up watching it with people who've never seen it before.
That's always fun.
That's how it's a rewatch for me. But then I know there's a conversation coming afterwards. Yep. Another movie like that is Inception. I'll watch Inception with anyone who's never seen it before, just knowing there's going to be a follow-up conversation at the end.
This is very different level of film, obviously, but I always loved, if you've seen it, the movie Identity with John Cusack.
Yeah.
I loved that one for that thing where you're waiting till the last 5 minutes, then you keep peeking over and go, did they get it yet?
Just looking out the corner of your eye.
Love that movie.
Yeah,
this is a fun comment. Kubrick Lover, Dante Ferretti designed the sets for Gangs of New York, who also did sets for Fellini, and I'm pretty sure did some of Bertolucci's sets, which is really interesting. That is a hell of a resume.
Yeah. See, that's another director that Scorsese got me into was Fellini, because I would say besides, I was unfamiliar with most of his work before, heard Scorsese talking about him, especially 8.5. He was a big 8.5 fan. So, dove into that.
It's always a good place to dive into. Let's see. This was one I wanted to highlight. Terry says, I saw Taxi Driver before college and didn't love it. I saw it theatrically for the 20th anniversary, and it was a very different story. Maybe my second all-time favorite movie.
Yeah. Certain films you just got to come back to after life has changed. So you can appreciate it from a different perspective.
On top of that, something that I know that you and I both do a lot, as well, maybe not a lot, but as much as I can, that I've tried to suggest to people before is if you live in a town that has any theater that does repertory screenings, please go watch catalog films on the big screen, because it genuinely, it can bring a film from like a a 3 out of 5. Yeah, it was a nice movie, cool. To, oh my God, I will never be the same person again after watching that on the big screen.
Especially older films, you have to realize a lot of them were made for theatrical releases. They weren't made to be watched on your phone, or even, I don't care how nice your home theater is. There is something about seeing a movie with, I'll say it, a group of strangers on a big screen. I love Get Out, but I don't like watching Get Out at home. I like watching it in the theater with a bunch of people I don't know, like doing that number. So
yeah,
it's different.
When we were talking about New York and it being smelly through the film, Seibner says it's his hometown too, but you know how bad this place smelled. I can still smell the lingering cigarette smoke in the cabs.
Yeah, or something worse.
And if you walk
Saturdays.
I was about to say, if you walked Hollywood Boulevard in the last decade, you've smelled something similar.
Yeah.
Quiet Rob says, thanks for showing some love to the king of comedy. Let's see. Seibner also agreed with you, says, I just got into an argument with a friend over this. If you've not seen the movie, you don't get an opinion.
Thank you. Each and every time. Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, I got a couple questions that are going to piss some people off. I'm going to keep highlighting some of these, but we're already coming up on 3 hours, so I want to make sure everybody's done soon. First off, what is your Scorsese hot take? Like, this is so against the grain that people are going to be surprised when I say this.
I think he is an old codger as far as his view of the movie industry today. Doesn't keep him from making good movies, but I think he is out of touch when it comes to modern day movie viewing and also modern day movie making.
I'd agree there, 100%, literally.
Yeah. I don't just mean like this superhero movie comment. There's so many aspects of it. Yeah, he's doing restorations and he's keeping up with the Blu-ray and the 4K formats, but there are other things. And I think doing Irishman really kind of gave him a better aspect of how things can be, but he still has a long way to go on like getting a feel for the way modern movies are not only enjoyed but also made.
Well, and to be fair, like we said at the beginning, the dude directed his first short 64 years ago, and
he's 80.
A few things have changed in that time, so evolving is not super easy, and I get it, but you would hope that he would be able to do it soon.
Yeah.
Ruben Villa says, guess no one likes Mean Streets. Do you have an opinion on Mean Streets?
Just that it was the first Scorsese film I saw. That's about it. It was memorable.
Yeah.
I like that he goes through, like, I don't even want to call them ingenues, but he goes through these periods where he has certain leading actors. So he went through a brief Keitel period when he was coming out of film school. And then he went into, De Niro and all the way up to Daniel Day-Lewis. Now it's Leo. Leo seems to have the longest run. But, yeah. When it was Keitel with Mean Streets and everything, I think that was his rawest part of his filmography, but it is memorable. It is.
That is absolutely true. God, was Gangs of New York Leo's first one? It was, right? Was Scorsese?
And Daniel's last one.
Wow.
That was a transition.
That means this year it'll be 21 years from Leo's first to his most recent, which means if Scorsese gets to do even one more with Leo, if it takes longer than the next 4 years, maybe Leo will leave him behind because it'll be 25 years.
Yep.
That was a joke about Leo and young women. Seibner says the back half of Goodfellas dampens the first half for him.
The third act gets crazy. But the whole thing gets manic.
As you were saying that sentence, we lost your microphone. Just so you know. Ruben says, I thought I was going to fall asleep on The Irishman because of the runtime, but was really invested all the way through. Now you're back.
Okay.
One of Sharon Stone's best two. I don't think we talked enough about Sharon Stone when we brought that up. She's incredible in that.
Never talk enough about Sharon Stone.
Let's see. Everyone should watch Scorsese's A Personal Journey Through American Movies documentary.
That's what I'm looking for.
And I believe he was genuinely holding it before you brought it up. Let's see. Another one that we didn't bring up, any of the music docs. Are there any of those that you have any sort of a real affinity for?
Last Waltz.
It's the sound of it is astounding.
I wasn't even a fan of the band, but my God, that is such a great film. And you're right, the sound. I'm a sound guy, and I'm like, should I get the 4K? Yeah, I'm gonna get the 4K this year. After I set up my media room downstairs.
Nice.
I gotta have you over when I do.
Please, by all means. I'm dying. I just said this in the Discord a couple days ago too. I can't wait until my kids are just slightly older so that I know they won't wrestle their way into a speaker and be able to buy a good sound system.
That hurts just to think about it.
Yep. I considered it a few years ago, and then as we were having a conversation, like 3 days after that, we went upstairs and found my kid with a little toy play hammer denting in one of our window frames. Just nick after nick after nick, the entire thing. I was like, great, cool, thanks. That's fantastic.
No.
Let's see. Kubrick Lover says, I've only watched Tuki Buki from the 4 Martin Scorsese World Cinema projects that I have, and it's literally one of the best.
Yeah, that's from 1, right?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Stan says there are many listings on eBay for that A Personal Journey doc right now.
I'll have to look it up.
Before you said it, Stan says, now let's talk about Scorsese's love of superhero movies. Okay, so another hot take question. Do you think there are any of his films that are genuine disappointments for you?
Now I gotta look. Go through some more comments while I look.
I will happily. I'm trying to see if I have an answer for this one. I was trying to look real quick too. I don't know if it's a hot take. I really did not like Hugo that much.
I thought Hugo and Tintin was really underrated at the time that they came out. But this is too easy. I'm gonna say Boxcar Bertha, and everyone's like, "What?" Because they don't know it. But he was young. It was like his early years of filmmaking. Boxcar Bertha.
That's another one I've never seen, and I just got that new Sandpiper Blu-ray that they just re-released. So that will be my first time watch here soon.
New York is kind of but the man was hooked on Blow. What do you want?
Touche. Will says Martin Scorsese's The Punisher would be a fun one.
Oh my, that'd be interesting.
Very New York. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Silent Mandible says Goodfellas is overrated. I don't get the hype. Got to give it another watch, I say.
Yeah.
When you have to struggle to get your films made for so long, but then an IP gets greenlit just because it's part of a bigger universe, that has to sting a bit. Comic book movies are mostly made by committee, and that to him isn't filmmaking, it's a director's medium. However, there's a whole other aspect of it, and I think that in my opinion, one of the worst aspects of his take on this is the pretension with the way that he speaks on it. And,
I agree.
Just last week, I put out that series of movies in the mind, and our first conversation was about gatekeeping. And just by stating that, and obviously nobody should be looked at as infallible, but if you are making a statement like that, you are literally an influencer, which can take away somebody's complete watch of a film. And if somebody worked on what was even the Marvel movie that inspired that? I think it was Shang-Chi or something like that. It was right after that came out that he said that first thing. So basically what I'm getting at is if you are somebody that was working on Shang-Chi and you devoted 9 months of your life to that every single day, and your favorite filmmaker comes out the day after its release and says, this is shit, this is not art, nobody should watch these.
Yeah.
What are you going to feel like?
Yeah, exactly. It was such a dismissive statement that made him look like holier than thou. I mean, you think about it, there's people who don't watch entire genres of films. Are you going to come out and say, hey, just because they made X amount of Friday the 13th movies, they shouldn't make any more because it's just, you know, it's not even a director-led movie, it's a franchise-led movie. It doesn't matter. It's something for everybody out there. And if that's not your jam, you're saying that because your movies aren't getting made?
Yeah.
You had problems finding a studio to make The Irishman? I don't know. I think that's more like sour grapes than anything else. And I mean, you're at the level where you should be able to find someone to finance your movies. If not, it could be the movie, not the type of movie.
Yeah, that's very true. Seibner argues there's a world where both can exist, but right now, comic movies are about 80% of the market. I love comic book movies. They're opening night every time, but there's a whole generation that only watches those movies. Yeah. So, first of all, the 80 is obviously a very exaggerative number. It's nowhere near, not even 10%. Yeah. But the reality is, if you are thinking in terms of the 80% of the market because of box office, that's a completely different thing. Now, I get that. I get that we have studios that are only pumping movies into these because they make the most money. Your issue shouldn't be with the comic book movies themselves. It's the studios that are making these decisions.
Yeah.
The other aspect that I think should be the target of some of our ire, especially if we are all film fans in here, is the fact that because of the funding in our country, a lot of the aspects behind that are still very conservative in nature. We tend to not focus on the arts as much as we should. Look at how many countries give grants every single year just because they are making a movie in their home country.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about like tax write-offs in certain states here. That's not the same thing at all.
Nope.
Not at all. If you were able to find a way to promote the arts in a way that was meaningful and could maybe give a rise to things like I just talked about, Jonathan, with Fun City, where are our mid-budget films? There's no, what we had back in 1997 where films would come out with a budget of $20 million. Well, I guess that's not, we'll say a budget of $5 million then. So nowadays it would be like 20 million, 25 million. Those don't exist, because they don't make 25 million in the box office. So they don't greenlight them.
That's why a movie like Megan is so celebrated, because if you make it for 12 and it comes out and makes 30 its first weekend, it really comes down to it that, we want to be entertained, but the studios want to be paid. So guess what? If it's like we have AMC here that used to be 30, now it's 28, and half of those theaters are showing Black Panthers because Black Panther is going to bring in money. Meanwhile, they'll still have 2 or 3 theaters showing maybe a couple independents or a couple of international films, and they're not going to bring as much money. So guess what? You're not going to see them in the big theater. You're going to see them in the smaller ones, and they're not going to be in 14 or 15. They're going to be in 1 or 2. It's all about numbers. And the studios are that way, and the movie theaters are that way. So I think instead of complaining, why don't you give praise to companies like A24, one of the few studios that still take what I would say risk as far as bringing out movies that are not franchised necessarily and doesn't appeal to a wide audience. They just look for a quality of a story. So you could get Hereditary and you could get Marcel the Shell. And the whole thing is, it's going to draw attention. That's what they want, But most studios, especially the bigger the studio, the more focused on the dollars they're going to be.
Right, which is exactly what I was going to say. We both said it's the studios, but in all reality, like 90% of this argument could be made just about Disney alone. The fact that they own it's like 70% of the market nowadays or something like that. That alone is what makes this dangerous for everybody all the way down. I mean, even Warner Brothers, with some of the biggest IP in the world, have been floundering. And it's primarily because look at the contracts that Disney have. And when Black Panther comes out, they're required to show it for like 4 or 5 weeks, I think is the requirement, in at least half of their screens.
Yep.
That is stupid. That should not exist. That's something our government should be able to step in and say this is a monopoly.
But other countries would do that. Other countries would step in and make some kind of adjustment there. I didn't know about this until when Tarantino did the road show for Hateful Eight, and he couldn't show the road tour in a theater that was showing whatever Marvel movie was out at the time, or Star Wars movie, or whatever Disney movie was out at the time. So they had to wait, take out those movies for like a week, lose money because they were losing money, and then show the traveling tour for that week, take it back out to get those Disney movies back in, and they could start making money again. That's how it works.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with. A couple comments I missed. It looks like yes, the studio is to blame, but they are in it to make money, and the price of a ticket is so high now that people can only come out for a grand experience, which that's more of the argument, not the fact that the comic book movies exist.
Yeah, they want the short shot, whether it's the consumer or the studio or the movie theater.
Will, who is a film teacher, obviously, says superhero movies are a return to the B serials, except with blockbuster budgets. The former A pictures are now the B pictures. The important part, they've both always existed, and they can continue to exist.
Yeah, and now we celebrate some of those B movies.
They get the attention. Skolder brings up a good point. Mid-budget films are on this side of the pond. Europe is all about the mid-budget films over the last decade. So that is absolutely true, Skolder.
Very true.
Let's not forget that there are many people that love these movies, and I'm one of them. I love them. I can also love Scorsese films and comic book films. I'm not like a diehard MCU fan or even a DC fan at all, but it is it is a realm that I think that we've gotten some of the best art out of some of those as well. Like Into the Spider-Verse might be one of my favorite films of all time.
Yes, best Spider-Man movie out there.
It's not even close. Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing for me is, once again, I'm comic book from the 70s and 80s old, but for me, just having the subpar movies and TV shows, well, some of them were good, but it's like my childhood dream come true to see my favorite characters on a big screen. And there's at least 2 or 3 generations of people like me. And then the ones younger than us are the ones who are the MCU fanatics, and they're just eating the stuff up. I mean, he's right. It is the closest thing to serials. So when people are like, oh, I got to watch 4 shows and watch 18 movies just to catch up. No, you don't. You just get extra information that way, and you don't want to miss out on anything because we live in a FOMO society. But that's another story.
Yeah. The other important part, obviously we already said the ires with the studios, but it was really exemplified as we started hitting the super late 90s into the early 2000s. Obviously X-Men was the big turning point there, and then the 2002 Spider-Man set everything ablaze. But when you think about it, somebody that was, say, 10 years old when 2002 Spider-Man came out, they are now 31 years old in 2023. They are at the point where they're making a career out of their life. If they were inspired by what they saw as a 10-year-old in the cinema, oh my God, Spider-Man is amazing. I can now look up to this person and want to be Peter Parker. I want to film something like this someday. If that's the majority of what we've been marketing for the last 20 years, I mean, of course that's going to be inspirational. Yeah,
we went from the movies being not so good to the movies being really, really good as far as the art direction and the computer graphics and everything. It's like the technology caught up with the idea of the story. It's going to be here for a while, but it's not the only thing out there. I mean, the great thing about this time of year, what we call award season, is that's the time for these other movies to shine. Yep. And I mean, we'll be lucky if we get one MCU movie being celebrated, you know, be it Black Panther, what have you. But yeah, there's room for both.
Seibner wants to say he wasn't arguing that they can't both exist. He's got one final comment, it looks like. I've gotten into so many discussions with younger people who insist that The Dark Knight is the greatest film ever made, but they refuse to watch any other type of films. And that's sad because it limits what they can experience.
I agree.
And I agree. I think that is very sad as well. However, I think the dangerous part is the condescension that comes in with saying, just because that shouldn't be your favorite film, I'm saying that you shouldn't like it.
Yeah.
And that's where that gatekeeping comes. And Cyber, I'm not saying you're saying that at all, by the way.
Right.
I'm sure you know that. But it's just kind of a dangerous two-sided coin. It's obviously, we should truly just be championing art. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Yeah. And I want to know what happened after Batman went out the window. What happened to all the guests in the Joker? Were they just standing there? Did they just all leave in an orderly fashion? That's
everybody holding still, and then somebody goes,
"Yeah,
can we leave?
Should we leave now?" That's why it's 4.5 stars instead of 5 stars in my book.
That's the only reason.
Only reason. Bad writing.
On the note of should we leave, I think perhaps we should. KB, I want to say thank you. This has been incredible. I hope everybody's enjoyed the Scorsese talk, the MCU talk, the barely little nugget in our show tonight about announcements, because there was not that many. Either way, I hope that you found something in these 3 hours to enjoy, and I'm easily going to be having you back multiple times. So thank you, KB.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and a joy. You know us, we could talk about this stuff for hours, and we will pretty soon.
In less than a day and a half, and I can't wait. Thank you all. I will see you next week. I guess I should make a habit of this. I've been doing it quite a while. Next week, since I randomly start teasing things, it's going to be a little bit of an international week. On this channel, we're going to be spending the week in Germany. And that's all I'll say. I hope that you guys have liked this. Once again, I want to thank a group of special people, and of course, that is the patrons of the channel. We have grown quite a bit lately. A lot of the people that have been on here have been amazing. Our Discord is more active than ever. The handful of people that have signed up in the last month, you are astonishing. Watching everything grow and adding a different, diverse expectation for our discussions is always amazing. So thank you. You're astonishing. We will see you next week. And KB, I'll see you in just a day and a half.
Yes, sir. Go watch a movie. Go watch.
Have a good night, everybody. Yes. Yeah, go watch King Comedy on Hulu. See you next Thursday.
See ya.